you doing, all you beautiful sons of bitches? It's your boy Backseat, and today we got Jeremy, and after pulling off a face turn recently, please give a warm round welcome to Crimes New Roman. Say hello, Crimes.
Hey.
Yeah, and today, as part of Crimes' hazing ritual, we are going to be looking at the Anthony Gramuglia video, Spider-Man Legally Cannot Be Gay. Now, or whatever the hell it is. Now, what do you guys think of the title already? Spider-Man Legally Cannot Be Bi, Superheroes and Bi Erasure. What do you guys make of that?
I mean, to be honest, it's clear that it's like a hyperbole in a sense. Because it's like, I think it's just more of like a hyperbole, like clickbaity title. He's probably going to like discuss. I haven't seen the video, but I did like take a peek at the timestamps in the description before, just to get like a sense of what Ant's going to be talking about. Looks like he's just going to be discussing like the characters. And how like his relationship was in the movies, and to be honest, I'm kind of like neutral about it. I'm not like the most I know about Spider-Man really comes from the Sam Raimi films, and a bit like mostly from the movies, mostly the Sam Raimi films, a bit of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and like I guess a couple from the comics, but like I'm not like 100%, so I can't really like verify. It looks like it's probably just going to be like a standard.
In other words, Jeremy is a filthy casual. No, I'm just kidding, Jeremy. You're fine.
I've just never been honestly, most of my knowledge from the comics comes from Linkara's series Atop the Fourth Wall.
I don't like that guy.
I had a massive Channel Awesome phase in high school, and Linkara was one of the people that I watched the most. I still occasionally watch Channel Awesome people, but not really as much as I used to. Like, I occasionally watch Nostalgia Critic and Cinema Snob, while I still like Phalis and Linkara, but I just kind of drifted away from them and found other people, and so I kind of
Anyway, also John, hello there.
Hello, John.
Hello, John.
Made it just in time.
Yeah. John, what do you make of the title, Spider-Man Legally Cannot Be Bi, Superheroes and Bi Erasure? What do you think of that? John?
I think John is dead.
John died of cringe before the video even began. Oh, no.
Or maybe his mic is just broken.
Yeah, or his mic is broken. John, if your mic is broken, just text me over the VC chat and I'll read what you say off. I'm interested in what Ant means when he says he legally cannot be bi. Like there's a legal stipulation somewhere in this. Because
my guess is it's just a clickbait title. I think it's just more of a clickbait title.
It might be a clickbait title, but you never know with Ant.
That is true.
From my limited knowledge of this, I would guess he might be talking about the contract that happened between Sony and Marvel around the time of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, in which there was like kind of a like list of character traits that Marvel specifically laid out for Sony to like make sure Spider-Man were all of these things, and including that one of them was like no homosexual relationships or something like that. So that would be my best guess. I don't know if I'm right, but
Nugget, I'm sorry, Crimes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. But and just for context, I'm a bisexual person, so I feel like I have extra context around this whole thing, and I'm quite interested, since bisexual people have had like some problems with representation over the years. So I'm very curious what Ant is going to say.
All right, well, just my thesis on this whole thing before we even get into it is that my thesis isn't that he legally can't be bi. He can't be bi because of like legal reasons or whatever. He can't be bi because he literally isn't. That's just my thing on it. Spider-Man has never ever been depicted as being bi or gay for that matter to begin with. He has always had an attraction to women. His relationships with women is a very big part of his stories. They're at the center of a lot of his more famous moments. So I have no idea how the heck Ant is gonna freaking justify that. But whatever, let's just get into it. Are we all ready, folks?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm ready.
Yeehaw, cowboy.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, John, we can hear you now.
Oh, good. I can hear you. I had
He
to
is-
shut off and shut back on my stream deck before I could actually
He has
hear
risen
any of
from
you.
the ashes. Here we go, boys.
Like a
Leading up to the
phoenix.
production of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, everyone's favorite Spider-Man film, Andrew Garfield spoke to producer Matt Tolmach about his ideas for where Spider-Man could go in the next film, plans he would later share with the press. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Garfield admitted that he half-jokingly suggested to Tolmach that The Amazing Spider-Man's version of Mary Jane, MJ, Mary Jane Watson, the woman who eventually Peter Parker would marry, should be changed to a guy.
Oh no, that already, that's a very bad idea. That's gonna piss off so many fucking people. So thank God,
100%.
thank God
oh my
that
God,
idea
would-
got shot down.
And if this is your
if Gwen
first
Stacy
idea, that's
turned
not a
into
good.
guy. The culture war about it would be such a massive.
Oh, it absolutely would. Yes.
And if that's
I
like
mean-
your first idea for a creative change, it's like that shows me you're kind of like not thinking about it from a story. Like, what does actually MJ changing to a guy really change? It's like,
I mean,
Oh, it's not-
I personally would love to watch Andrew Garfield have sex with a dude, but obviously I'm a bisexual person.
Yeah.
would you like to watch Andrew Garfield have sex with anyone though?
I mean, Andrew Garfield is pretty hot. It would depend on who the other person is.
Okay.
Oh, I want to say something. One side note: Andrew Garfield, well before he was actually like known, he was in an incredibly weird short film called Mumbo Jumbo. I found out about it from this other YouTuber I watch named Film
Mumbo.
Cooper, who's kind of like a typical commentary YouTuber, and he made a video about it. I watched the film. It is insane. Like, you can find the whole film on YouTube. It's called Mumbo Jumbo, and it is really crazy.
That sounds sick.
And then if Mahler commented on that, he can make it Grumbo Mumbo Jumbo.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
As Garfield put it, I was kind of joking, but kind of not joking about MJ. And I was like, what if MJ is a dude? Why can't we discover that Peter is exploring his sexuality? It's hardly even groundbreaking. So why can't he be gay? Why can't he be into boys?
Because he isn't. Plain and
What's
simple.
the story purpose? I'm like, I hate whenever it's just like stops there. Like, he never, I mean, maybe he elaborates on it, but it's like,
I mean,
Garfield.
further?
I feel like the problem is it's like people, like, because it's like people are just like, oh, let's just take this major character, like basically it's like, oh, like they basically take characters like okay, what if we made Spider-Man bi? And it's like, then what? It's like a character isn't just good because, okay, well, it's a popular character, but they're bi now. Like, we don't like Superman or Homer Simpson because they're straight. We like them because of who they are as characters. And it's like stuff like this is like, oh, let's make them bi, and then what? Okay,
it's
let's
like-
break the lunch. Like, what? Like, what would? Okay, it's like you can't just like if you want to make a bisexual Spider-Man, then fine, but you have to make them a character first. Like, Luz from the Owl House is interesting not because she's a bisexual, but because she's an interesting character that has an interesting development. She just happens to at the same time be a bisexual, and that's what's so frustrating about representation. They always just like, let's just make the character that, and then just okay, and then just like It's basically step 1, make the character a minority. Step 2, step 3, profit. Like, you need to make them an actual character, and that's what's so frustrating about this discourse.
Apparently, Andrew Garfield wanted Michael B. Jordan to be his boyfriend. So, quote, we have interracial bisexuality. Who the hell would Michael B. Jordan even play? Like Randy Robertson,
or MJ,
maybe?
because his initials in real life are Michael B. Jordan.
Oh,
so
no.
naturally,
Michael Jordan Watson. There we go. Oh, yeah. Fucking
awesome.
great idea. That'll get butts and seats.
Get my butt.
Yeah, your butt.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
I can make a joke about the butts, but never mind.
Also, Christ, and what the hell happened to your chin? Shave, my guy. Did your fucking buzzer die out on you?
Well, I mean, this is an older video, so he probably did.
Maybe, yeah.
Try to assume anything about Andrew Garfield's motivations here. I do think that the fact that he had Michael B. Jordan in mind to play male MJ kind of shows he was wanted to share some romantic scenes with Michael B. Jordan, but, I mean, can you blame him? I mean, really?
Speaking of people who can't grow facial hair.
Yeah.
Michael B. Jordan, get a full goatee. Gosh dang it.
Yeah.
As co-creator Stan Lee was asked at a convention about Andrew Garfield's statements, he responded with his usual theatrics and humor, but added,
Is he becoming bisexual? Who have you been talking to? I don't know. Seriously, I don't know anything about that. And if it's true, I'm going to make a couple of phone calls.
Ooh.
So why did Garfield want this? Well, he clarified.
Who cares? It's a dumb idea.
That guy next to Stan Lee kind of looked like a fatter Charlie Cox. It's like Charlie Cox if he put on 15 pounds or so. And yeah, Stan, I feel like that was part of the elder abuse of that documentary that they're trying to get funded.
And
I've heard so much discourse. I mean, honestly, a lot of people, I've heard kind of mixed things. A lot of people are claiming that it's like the dude's taking advantage of the documentary, and it was like, and they're like, oh, well, if he has all the footage, then why doesn't he release it now? And I'm like, I mean, I don't know this guy. I don't know what he has to go through, but it's like, I mean, it's hard making a documentary. Like, he could have been threatened or blackmailed to not reveal this information, and all that. And although to be honest, I think a lot of it is because he showed up on Nerdrotic's stream. Like, it can't be a coincidence that the moment I heard no backlash before he appeared on one of Nerdrotic's streams. The moment he appeared on one of Nerdrotic's streams, I began to see waves of backlash. Oh, this is again, a lot of it doesn't mention the Nerdrotic stream, so it could. But I'm just saying, the timing of that just seems like it just seems way too close to not be a coincidence.
Well, he has a big platform, so that is probably where a lot of people heard from it, just from a popularity standpoint. Especially in the comic book kind of space.
Ant recently made a video on that. It's about 12 minutes. Maybe we'll watch it one of these days.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
not sure.
I didn't really bother watching it because I didn't really bother. I didn't really care about his input.
Yeah. Anyway.
That he sees Spider-Man as someone who stands in for anyone. That anyone can put on that mask and be Spider-Man. This is something that later Spider-Man films would also explore very thoroughly. Something that Stan Lee himself commented on throughout the character's history. That the brilliance of Spider-Man is his mask. It covers every inch of skin. Anyone can be anyone under that mask. And he represents New York City. I mean, yes, he's from Queens, but it's the New York City. He's the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. If you've been to New York City, you know it takes all kinds there. Everyone and anybody lives there. You can cross anyone's path. Anyone could be Spider-Man from any place. As Garfield explains, Spider-Man represents the everyman, but he represents the underdog and those marginalized who come up against great prejudice. Now,
okay, hang on. I know for a fact you didn't read that full quote, so let's read that in full. It was
these people love to strawman that quote. Like, these people love to claim that Stan Lee meant, and it's like, there's a difference between saying that anyone can play a character. Like, he's not saying that anyone can play a character in a literal sense. He's saying that anyone can see themselves
Yes.
in that character, and people like Ant are basically basically either intentionally or not, basically misinterpret it to be like, oh, well, basically, oh, well, that means he's saying that they can, and it's like ignore, and they always are, and it's basically just like intentional, because again, it's like they can't see like representate it. Okay, it's basically it. It's basically just Stanley meant it in like an abstract sense that he represents them in an abstract sense, some way, something like an allegory represents something, and these people took it as a literal admission that anyone, regardless of race or gender or sexuality, can play Spider-Man in a literal sense.
Yeah, I think it's more so. It's like I think what Ant is trying to get at here is that because Spider-Man is an everyman, and everymen are supposed to be, like every one person reading it who can relate with him, then that means Spider-Man's identity is completely malleable, and we can make him whatever we feel like, regardless of how he's been depicted for over 60 years now. I feel like that's what he's getting at.
I love his whole point about New York. He's like, oh, everybody can come. I'm like, as far as I know, there's no American city, at least, that has any sort of discrimination clause in there. So you could pretty much be talking about any town or city.
Yeah.
Nobody rejects you because out of a city because you're like a certain color or gay or whatever.
You're Malaysian. Oh, sorry, sir, but we here in St. Louis, Missouri. Yeah, you're not allowed in St. Louis, Missouri if you're Malaysian.
What I think personally, I would like to see more of from like Marvel Comics, who's like Spider-Man as an example. Like, I have a friend who's super duper into comics, like ridiculously knowledgeable about that stuff, and like he tells me all the time about like these new variants or runs of characters and superheroes that like take advantage of different backgrounds to like make a new version of the hero, like how comics have been doing it in like for forever, making different versions of different heroes for different things. And like I think that's one of the great advantages of the comics working how they do and having these different versions of characters, like Peter Parker Spider-Man, Miles Morales Spider-Man, all of the Spider-Man. Like I think instead of like not necessarily making like Peter like something else, like I think having another Spider-Man, like how they did with Miles Morales, and like giving Miles a chance to shine, or like another Spider-Man to shine, to like have that sort of representation. Like I think that's a really cool thing that can work within comics guidelines to both like keep defined, like more defined characters like Peter intact, while also like doing really cool things with like the idea of Spider-Man or other characters, and like leveraging it like that. I think that's really cool personally.
Well, you could do it. I mean, I feel like the most effective is to make your own mantle. Like, whenever I was a kid, I was not too like, my first exposure to Spider-Man was the PS1 game, and then but like my brother and I, Blade came out in like 98, I think, so I would have been like 6 years old. We just went and saw Blade and thought it was awesome. We weren't thinking like, this is so culturally important to have this representation. We were just like, if you have a cool character who happens to be some sort of minority in some way, people will most likely gravitate to them. And like, I bought the Blade 2 PS2 game. Like, we were super into Blade, and we never once gave a shit whether he was black or not.
Out of curiosity here, just for like my own information gathering, like I am white as shit, and I'm bisexual. Like, who else here is like white or some flavor of like gay or like minority or whatever? Just to like, I'm curious what the room temp is.
Maguido, that's what I am.
I'm white, but I'm straight, so.
Yeah, white, straight, but ginger, so very oppressed.
Fair. Yeah, like for instance, me with like my small amount of like quote unquote oppression with the bisexuality thing. And like, you know, I have like trans friends and friends of color, like being able to see themselves even in like a minor way. Like it might not seem as like a big deal for, you know, people like me to like see a black character, but like some of my friends who are people of color or trans people growing up like had very little actual like representation to grab onto, and seeing things like that more and more in media was like really important for them. And like personally, like that's why I'll always like advocate for new cool ways of like making that scene not only for people like them to feel recognized, but for people like us to like see it more and have it be more normalized, so we don't have to have like discussions around like forced diversity and things like that. Like I think that normalization for everybody is why it's important to try to find ways to do it.
Well, my point with that was mainly that you don't need the crutch of the mantle. Like Blade was a new character that we knew nothing about, and we never held it against him that he was black, and it was never something that was really propped up. So my point is, if you make a good character, people will naturally be fine with it. And if somebody sees themselves in that and they gravitate to it, then great. But it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be. It wasn't forced. That was my whole thing. Is that it wasn't forced, and it wasn't ever like really written into it. It's not like Blade was constantly stopping and going, and that's why these oppressive, whatever's in this city, that's why I have to take care of them because they have all these natural advantages. Like he had his own story arc that had nothing to really do with his race. But yeah, it was just that it was an original character that that attracted people of all sorts.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm advocating for, and to, you know, read like what Ant is talking about and Andrew as like charitably as possible. Like they don't want to just like take characters and like make them gay or whatever, and then have that be like the defining personality trait. Like there has to be like an actual story and character for it to be like actually good. But it does bring up the very interesting point of, it seems like a lot of like straight stuff is kind of like passed along for like schlocky movies, you know, like big action flicks where it's like, oh, the dude's just straight and the movie isn't that good, but it's like campy fun. But then, like, you know, obviously if there's like gay shit in something, then for some reason that's a bit more of a problem. But that's a whole other conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not always. Like like the movie Bros, like massively, like flopped. Like it was a massive flop, and a couple people like Despot of Antrim talked about it, but it didn't get the same treatment as something like The Acolyte or Rings of Power, or it was like, oh, this huge big thing. It just was a movie that kind of like, it flopped. A couple people talked about it, and it just kind of came and went, and barely anyone talks about it now.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair to that comparison, though, Rings of Power and Acolyte are two massive properties from massive established IPs that are way more encompassing of like people interacting with culture, specifically like nerds, than like the movie Bros, which, to be honest, until you mentioned it just now and I Googled it, I had never heard of. So
oh really? Oh
yeah.
Oh,
I'm
well,
like,
yeah,
I've never seen
kind
this.
of heard of it like a couple times. I actually saw it in my college's theater, and it was all right for what it was. Like it was a decent rom-com, but I definitely can see why it wouldn't gravitate towards a lot of people. And Billy Eichner, the dude who made it, like his reaction to the film flopping was so immature. Like it was like the exact type of thing that a lot of people do. Like he basically like chalked it up to like homophobia and all that, even though it's like an LGBTQ rom-com, which is like one of the most niche things on the planet. Of course, it wasn't going to do Jurassic World numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I hadn't heard of this at all. That's fascinating.
I think you shouldn't try to use it.
Despot, there's a YouTuber I watched him. I mentioned him earlier, Despot of Antrim. He made like a huge, like very long video about it. And yeah, I didn't see whole thing. But Despot Venture makes some pretty good things, and it's pretty good for what
He
it
makes
is.
them
Yeah.
off very niche and older films a lot of times too, which you get new stuff that you don't hear talked about as often. Like he went
That's
after
cool.
like women talking or something. He made like a whole 2-hour video like shitting on that. That's like an Oscar movie from like 5 years ago or something. It was hilarious though, just because it got so many awards. I think like basically don't use it as a crutch either way would be my main advice to Hollywood people. Like don't try and sell your movie just on being some sort of oppressed group, and don't try to don't use it as an excuse when it fails either. Don't say
Like exactly,
people
and
didn't
it's like
see it because of this.
so much representation is just Hollywood going, oh look, I can't be racist. I have a black friend. See, I put a black person in my famous franchise. See, and it's like that's not good representation. You need more of that. But unfortunately, there's a bunch of people that don't see nuance in that, and they see criticism of any like franchise with like a minority lead as
Often
just like bigotry. And it's like obviously there are, but like to frame the entire discussion as that is just so bad faith and leaves out so much nuance.
Well, and I'd be fine if that's like, obviously there's some historical films where that's going to be more of an, if you're making a film about the Tuskegee Airmen or whatever, of course that's going to be a major factor in it in the story. But like, whenever the first thing, like if you're selling Madam Web and it's like, why should we go see your movie? And they stick the microphone and they go, well, because women matter. And it's like, if that's your first thing that you use to like try and sell it or something, that is an immediate red flag for me as far as the quality of it, where I'm like, you didn't have anything else to say to like kind of lead your pitch or whatever.
Reminds me of the Ghostbusters remake.
To be honest, Madam Web didn't even do that. Like, it honestly
didn't. I was just thinking of an example, like a hypothetical thing.
It's like, honestly, it basically was just kind of just, oh, here's a film that's kind of tangentially related to Spider-Man. Go watch it. And it's like, honestly, I could do like a whole like diatribe on how that entire like Sony villain verse or whatever it's called like was bad. Like the only ones that even made a bit of a profit are like the Venom movies. And that's only because it's like Venom. Venom's at least somewhat a recognizable character.
The Eminem song.
Venom. Yeah, God.
Well, I mean,
those movies are terrible, but like I also kind of love them at the same time.
But yeah, it's like it's like Morbius. We all know how that turned out. Madam Web flopped, and I guess like Craven, out of all of them, like I guess out of the non-Venom Villainverse movies, I guess Craven the Hunter was the most well received. But like when the other ones are friggin' Madam Web and Morbius, that's like, wow, like that's not really saying much. Like
it made a more $1 billion.
Morbius and Madam Web. Do you want a cookie?
I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Morbius literally got released twice. It was so successful.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. Like,
it made a more $1 billion.
That Sony was so duped by the memes. They were like, oh, hey, people are liking Morbius. Let's release it again. They released it again, and it flopped just as big. Wow. Like, that is hilarious. The fact that they got owned.
It always feels hard to like take a room temp on how things actually are, because like it feels like large releases with like big IPs like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or Marvel or whatever, like there's so much like gobbledygook around all of that, which like I don't like watch a lot of that stuff anymore, and like I watch a lot of like smaller movies and shows and stuff, and it's one of those things that feels like it's kind of hard to really get a room temp of like who's angry at who for what, when it's just a lot of people like fighting over like representation in established properties, when like all these other smaller things are doing things so much better that nobody's talking about, because like a lot of these people really just watch like big tentpole movies. Like that for me is what's kind of frustrating about the discussion, is it feels like things like this only happen around like Star Wars and Marvel and Lord of the Rings. Meanwhile, I'm watch I'm off watching my small gay movies all the time that nobody ever pays attention to, and they're great. So it's like, I don't know, super weird.
You heard this? One of my favorite movies that is one of the best like examples of representation is the film Sorry to Bother You.
Yes, I fucking love that movie.
Oh yeah, it is a movie. Like it is one of the best examples of like, honestly, I consider it a good idea of how to do like make a woke movie but do it right, because it addresses like a lot of like things that like bad faith people would label as woke, like like oppression, bad, like racism, but it does it in a way that isn't like demeaning or pandering, that's woven into the story naturally and done in such a like natural like way. It's a movie that just manages to do it as a perfect balancing act, managing to balance the political side but do it in a cool way, and also being a movie on top of that. Meanwhile, I mean, there are like a few people that talk about it, but like most people don't, and they just rely on like stuff like a lot of like mainstream garbage, and it's like frustrating because there's so many like again, it's like there's just so many like in like smaller films that deserve like that deserve a lot of attention. Like again, films like there are so many films that deserve like good attention, but they're just drowned out in favor of generic, boring Hollywood blockbuster number 572.
Well, and that's always somewhat been the case. I mean, that used to be kind of what the Oscars were for, where they kind of served as that. There's a reason people that invested in those campaigns is because it was good advertising.
Yep.
When they had their massive ratings, that check that out, or they'll put the movies in theaters for a week or whatever, and they'll make a few million, which for a smaller film is probably good enough. And so, it was whenever they, like so many other things, whenever it sort of gets the hijacking of popular IP, I mean, people obviously are going to care about it more positive or negative because there's just more of a fan base there. And I think it usually comes off as like a cynical shoehorning in, trying to latch yourself onto something that's already successful. It's like, if you really had confidence in your story, you would make the original thing, and maybe you would have to budget it less. But it often feels like they're just, we want to have the budget of a Spider-Man movie, but we also want to have our message that's maybe a little bit more niche or whatever in there. Okay. But it also doesn't fit with this existing story. So now you're kind of fighting twofold. You're telling a smaller scale, maybe message with a character that it doesn't fit, and you're trying to torque it. And it's like, no, that's going to piss off people, obviously. Like, just make your thing and do it your own way. And you'll have less limitations too. Whenever you don't have the $200 million budget, you're going to be more creatively free because you won't have investors and people tweaking it in focus groups, breathing down your back and everything.
That's basically how I feel, like as somebody who's kind of hated the vast majority of like Disney Star Wars stuff that has come out. Like I feel like Andor, for me, like it feels like the executives or whatever just forgot that like Andor was even even being made, and so they didn't touch it, and like that's why Andor is like as good as it is. Like I thought Andor was fantastic, and such a stark contrast on every level between like every other aspect of Disney Star Wars, particularly in writing. Like there's such a level of detail that makes me think that nobody gave a shit about Andor, and that's why it turned out so good. That's why I'm terrified for the second season, because it got popular and people are like, wait, this is actually good. So are people going to fucking meddle with it now and make it ass? But I don't know.
The revolution starts now.
I think Andor honestly suffers from being a Star Wars thing, because like, yes, I enjoy, if I'm looking at it in a vacuum, I could say that's a good sci-fi show, but then I think, but they robbed all this stuff from the Legends continuity and twisted it. Now that I know a little bit about that,
John.
I know, but for the sake of easier conversation, I'll say Wedgens, just to know that I'm also making fun of that word.
That's good enough. There you go.
But it suffers because I'm watching it and I'm knowing like you know, and I don't even hate Rogue One as like a vacuum story, but I know that stole a bunch of shit and
Oh,
tweaked
yes,
it and
it did.
everything. And so it's like, and I'm glad that I know that. I don't want to live in ignorance and, you know, keep liking that. But it's like, but this all just leads to all this shit that's further down the line that now they've canonized. And it's like, you know, it honestly, like, it would have been better as a standalone show. I would have probably, because now I watch it and I'm like thinking about the further continuity of Star Wars. I'm just like, you know, yeah. So, I mean, but I can still enjoy scenes in a vacuum, like the prison speech and stuff. I'm like, that's still a good scene. I know it's a good scene, but it's sort of poisoned by being a part of Star Wars. And it works in the reverse. Yeah, a lot of times you make money off, you know, the MCU benefited from this, where their smaller movies made a lot more money whenever all the movies were relatively good up through like phase 3, or most all of them. And then now we see the reverse effect again, where it's like, yeah, even if you have maybe a decent film or show, people ain't going to like that because it's so surrounded by shit and that same continuity that it's like, oh, yeah, I don't know. I don't really care about the random hiccup of goodness if you're just bubbling up from a pile of shit.
Yeah. The only reason I watched Andor was because like somebody, I forget who it was, but somebody I trust on YouTube said it was actually good, and I was like, okay, fine, because I hadn't really paid attention to like anything for a long time since for Star Wars, since like, I don't know, episode 9, which made me want to unalive myself.
Oh,
but,
yeah?
But God, I fucking hate that movie. Yeah, and then Andor was like shockingly great. And as somebody who is a big fan of Legends as well, like I completely understand that sentiment of like feeling like there's something lost or like it could have been better. But it's one of those things that like if you like we don't really have any power to like change what Disney is going to do, and ultimately like I'm on the side of art, like of people making good art and quality shows, and the fact that like the creators clearly understood the limitations that they had to work with and were able to take that and make it into something as good as it was. Like they get applause from me, considering the swamp of garbage that has been pumped out around them in basically all of Star Wars. So I'm just glad it was pretty good, basically.
Anyway, moving on.
Prejudice. Now, at this point in the film series, Peter Parker was already dating Gwen Stacy, making Garfield's Spider-Man bi.
No.
Oh, God.
No, it doesn't. Unless we get confirmation that Peter was dated a guy before, which we didn't. Then he would be bi, but we never did. So for all intents and purposes, he is straight until they decide to reveal that. So no, and he wasn't bi in those movies. Get over
And
it.
honestly, an actor,
Like there's literally no evidence that happened. Like by that logic, basically any character in fiction that has ever dated a woman, I mean every male character that's ever dated a woman is bi. Which like, I mean, you can like make speculations, but you can't really just confidently say, "Oh, Peter in the Andrew Garfield movies is bi," because we don't really have confirmation of that.
Yeah, it's like I once heard this fucking YouTube channel named like The Gay Jedi or whatever the hell his name was. He legit tried to make an argument that Boba Fett was bi, and it's like, no, my guy, no, he isn't. We know Boba Fett.
Did he even have a girlfriend?
Yes, Boba Fett did have a girlfriend, Sintis Vel. He did have a wife. Sintis Vel. Yes, but did he have a boyfriend? No. So
you don't know what that Sarlacc pit did to him, man.
So
Fun
for
fact, Boba Fett.
Boba
Fett's first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. You might know this already. Boba Fett's first official appearance was in the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yes.
Yep.
But
I just think that's kind of funny.
But yeah, for all intents and purposes, Gay Jedi, or Pink Milk, as I think his nickname is talking out his behind. So there's that. So yeah, it's like you can make this so yeah, and like Jeremy just said, you can make this argument of literally any character and it'll be equally horse shit. So no, Ant, you're just wrong here. Stop.
To give you guys some context into the gay psyche here, this is an example of what I like to call gay cope, which is something that us queers do a lot of the time because there is like such a lack of representation. Like it can be cool even if it isn't like the most accurate or like guaranteed to like kind of have like that headcanon in like certain situations like this to kind of create that little bit of representation for ourselves in like a kind of harmless way that like realistically we know probably isn't true, but it's like a nice bit of like internal gay support within communities to like sometimes have this to kind of headcanon, so to speak, some representation that we might be missing.
Anyway,
I mean, headcanons by themselves, there's nothing wrong with like headcanons and fan theories in a vacuum. The problem is when you try to put your headcanon into the show, even if it contradicts it, and just insist that your headcanon is true. Like as long as you recognize that your headcanon is just a headcanon and is just pretend and doesn't fit onto the actual show, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Star Trek, the first fanfics were basically all Spock and Kirk are gay, guys.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And people didn't like try to abolish those from the record. It was more like, okay, those are fanfics, and I can't control what somebody writes in their own thing anyway, so whatever.
And
like,
it was also the origin of the term Mary Sue.
yes. Anyway.
And though MJ didn't appear in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 at all, though there was an actress cast, for Shailene Woodley specifically, Peter does end up developing a close relationship with a boy, Harry Osborn.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. No, not another one of these. Oh my god. Relationship with a guy. That means, like, platonic relationships are a thing. I am so sick of people who see a simple, like, relationship and are like, they're like in love. They're in love. Like, platonic relationships are a thing. Stop it. Stop pretending that platonic relationships are a thing. Two people can interact with each other without it meaning that they're in love. Like, there are other relationships out there besides boyfriend/girlfriend/boyfriend, girlfriend. Like, two people can just be friends. That's something that's possible.
I'm gonna out myself as a Peter and Harry shipper, just so you guys know.
Well, I mean, I was just gonna say it's fine to me.
Like, that's not my like. I'm not saying that Peter and Harry can't be shipped ever, but I'm just saying that like Ant is basically saying that like Peter and Harry in the Amazing Spider-Man movies are like close attraction, and I'm like, and again, I haven't really seen either of them in full, so maybe, but from what I've seen of Peter and Harry in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, both 1 and 2, I did not see any romantic connection there, like at all. And if they did get a romance, it would have been like so forced. Like, I'm all for gay romance, but do it in a way where it feels natural. Don't just have a ship for the sake of it, gay or straight.
You underestimate the desperation of us gays.
Well, I'm just gonna say, I'm fine with if somebody wants to like comment about that or do a joke or whatever. But like, this guy is seriously analyzing this and looking at those films and thinking that it is seriously like a something that is written into the story. And I run into this a lot in the One Piece fandom, where like the one female character made a joke about another woman being hot like 20 years ago in the manga.
Oh,
and
Nami.
People have run,
was it Nami?
and people have run, and it was a running gag with everybody where they called this lady the sexy secretary. And then, and she immediately catches herself and says like, oh my gosh, I sound like an old perverted man or something. Like, it's so clearly a joke. People have run with that for 20 years. They'll still bring up that panel because they're just like, no, because I'll bring it up like casually in something like, I don't know, speculating as to who she'll end up with at the end of the story. And somebody will be, and if I bring up any guy for her to be with, a bunch of fans get angry at me and just go, she is so canonically lesbian. Look at this panel from 23 years ago. I'm like, that's literally it. That's the one example you guys ever bring up.
Dude,
and I don't know why you're so obsessed with it.
Dude, people in the X-Men fandom bring that up and say, no, Bobby was, Iceman, right? Bobby was gay the whole time. Here's this one panel from X-Men #2, and it's the panel where, like, Scott, Hank, and Warren are watching Jean. She's in the yard practicing her telekinesis, right? And they're watching her, ogling her, and Bobby's like, I'm not like one of you guys where I just ogle a girl, so I'm out of here. And you can kind of see him like walking off panel. But meanwhile, in the very first issue, Bobby was as horny as the other three when Jean first arrived. Because remember, the book.
Wait. I'm sorry. That's why they think he's gay, because he won't be a creep and ogle Jean. That's why they think he's gay.
Yes.
Well, wasn't there like a whole reveal that he was gay?
Yes.
In the comics.
In like 2013, like years after he's had multiple girlfriends, even though all those romances weren't particularly long.
People were trying to retcon it into like, oh, they've always coded it this way or something.
They had Brian.
It.
They had Bendis basically write a storyline where the original 5 as teenagers, right? Like time travel to the future, and teenage Jean mind read teenage Bobby, and she's like, oh my god, Bobby, you're gay. And then that caused modern day Bobby, who was already an adult by that point, to officially come out. So that's how they handled it. Yeah.
To be fair, I have known many gay people who have started off thinking they were straight and like dating, being in a bunch of straight relationships, and that's how they figured out that they were actually gay. So like that's actually very normal to like date people thinking you're straight and then realize, wait a minute, these relationships aren't working out, not because we're not working out, it's because I'm actually gay. So I personally find that to be quite normal in the gayosphere.
Well, I'm not talking about somebody discovering their sexuality personally. I'm talking more about whenever people fit a square peg into a round hole retroactively in a story to try and justify a later decision. It's like, oh, this character's been around for 40 years, and then this one writer comes along and in some new continuity decides to do this, and then people decide, oh, well, now that character for the previous 40 years has always been this way because I found this panel that was never intended to be written that way pretty clearly, and it wasn't for 30, 40 years or whatever, and now we're going to retroactively make it so that he was never into this girl or whatever that he was dating. It's and it's the same thing with like this movie. It's like this can be a nice story of friendship and everything, and if they had suddenly come out in movie 4 and said like, no, well, they wouldn't even have done that, because this is honestly, I'm going to say, I think Andrew Garfield said this to try to, win some points online or whatever and say the right thing and everything. I don't think he ever gave it any serious story consideration, and it's kind of evident in his quotes. And I think that's often how people try and kind of, I guess you would call it virtue signaling, or just playing PR in a kind of a cheap way, where you're just like, it comes up a lot of conventions whenever somebody says like, oh, is there a queer character or something in this? And then the creator just goes, oh yeah,
Dumbledore was gay the whole time.
Yeah, maybe you've already seen them. I don't know. It's like, I get it. You're trying to get like a applause or whatever, but and it's fine to say that, but like, why? Because it pushes the idea that people who just have these normal friendships are actually like, oh, they need to find out that they're gay. It's like, well, maybe they're not. Maybe they're just friends. And it becomes this weird thing where it's like, if anytime two male characters like smile at each other, then we have to later write them to be that. And it's like, no, people can have all sorts of different relationships. It's fine.
Yeah, to your point, like I'd love to see more like larger pieces of media with more complexity in like male relationships that aren't like just like dude bro friends, but like there's like Lord of the Rings is just a great example with like the level of like caringness between like a lot of the men in the main group. Like that's adorable. I love that. I don't know if you guys have watched Arcane, but like the relationship between Victor and Jace was like super well done, and like they weren't gay or anything, but like a really great complex relationship between like two men that like isn't just like dude bro stuff. Like more complexity in male relationships, I think, is something I'd love to see.
Yeah. Well, and if you watch the Chinese version, the two women weren't lesbians either. They just leaned on random air in the next to them. I don't know if you've ever seen that edit where in the Chinese release there's like a scene where like V and her they're leaning on each other's like foreheads, and they show the edited version. She's just leaning on nothing.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that edit.
So goofy.
Anyway, moving on.
China, we love China.
And that relationship involves the exchanging of fluids at some point. I mean,
what?
No,
take a drink. Fuck.
Gotta do that from 0 to 10 real fast.
Oh, also Ant's face right here is so going on the thumbnail.
Oh yeah, that's literally what I was thinking too.
There it is. Moving on.
What an awkward way to phrase that. Just say they had relations.
Harry really wants Peter inside of him.
No.
Fine.
Hell yeah, let's go.
North Atlantic.
Oh my god! Like,
oh, you bet he's gonna be ham battered.
I thought this was a clip he had thrown in.
Oh, they're bisexual too. They're exchanging fluids, and Peter wants him inside him. What the? Wait, calm down. Like you're like, whoa! Like, take a step back. Like, eat a Snickers. Calm down.
Give me a docking scene, you fucking cowards! Come on.
Also, I'm sure you can find that version online.
Oh, you absolutely can.
Here he goes, taking movie clips out of context.
I need his blood.
Now, I'd like to explain that in context that makes more sense, but actually in context, it makes somehow less sense than what I just said. But anyway, of course...
Man, nothing you said makes
He's
sense in any context.
The story is stupid. Yeah, the story in the movie is stupid, yeah.
I mean, yeah, but...
didn't know, or maybe didn't explain, was that Spider-Man legally could not be bisexual, at least on film. In one of the many documents that found its way to the public after the massive Sony leaks, we discovered a list of mandatory Spider-Man character traits. Basically,
hang on, I want to go back and read these real quick. So, Marvel no longer has any creative approval rights of character integrity obligations. Okay. Alright, so it's basically stuff they have to show. Spider-Man, whether Peter Parker, an alternative Spider-Man character, must always strictly conform to the following mandatory character traits. Male, does not torture, okay. Does not kill unless in defense or self of others, okay. Does not use foul language beyond PG-13. Does not smoke tobacco. Does not sell illegal drugs. Does not abuse alcohol. Does not have sex before the age of 16. Does not have sex with anyone below the age of 16. Not homosexual. So all these sound like pretty legit. Like if Peter Parker doing any of these would be massively out of character. So all of these are thumbs up.
Some of them are just straight up like bad for any superhero to do. Like, it kind of goes without.
I mean, there are a few superheroes that do smoke, though. To be fair, Wolverine is quite the cigar.
Kills people.
Yeah, Wolverine is quite the cigar chomper, but.
I mean, that it says does not sell.
Superheroes selling drugs is kind of like. That's kind of,
yeah.
It's interesting that it says does not sell drugs, but there's nothing about doing drugs. I mean that's amusing wording.
Anyway, items with an asterisk are permitted while Spider-Man is wearing the black or symbiote suit. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously.
Marvel can enjoin a picture if it does not conform to the foregoing mandatory character traits I don't know why picture's capitalized. For any other failure to conform to character integrity or other requirements, Marvel's sole remedy is damages. Peter Parker character traits.
I'm just picturing the black suit Spider-Man. He's like, now that I have my evil black suit on, I will smoke a cigarette.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, he couldn't. If he lights the lighter, then the symbiote's gonna fucking fly off of him. Remember that panel, John?
Would actually be hilarious.
Even then, how the frick is he going to smoke with that mask that like covers like all of his face? Like,
I mean,
It's just it's funny.
I mean, he does take like the. He has taken the mask like half off, and we see him like eating a hot dog or something like that. He's done that.
This is the scene I need in the MCU black suit arc. Like, I need a scene of just him comically trying to smoke while he gets bad inhibition or bad vibes whenever he's in the black suit. He just wants to do all these like arbitrary naughty things. He's like, I'm gonna jaywalk.
Yeah.
It's just like...
Peter Parker character traits. Depiction of Peter Parker or his Spider-Man alter ego must conform to following character traits. His full name is Peter Benjamin Parker. He's Caucasian and heterosexual. His parents became absent from his life during his childhood. Okay, this is just Alright, this is just stuff pertaining to his origin. This is all stuff people already know about him. Alternate versions of Spider-Man. If SP depicts an alternate version of Spider-Man, not Peter Parker, then SPE must use the alternative versions. Okay, so everything here looks pretty damn legit, I must say. So, yeah.
So basically, it's like Peter Pan can't do any of that stuff.
Yes.
Break these.
Like he has to conform to those traits. Okay.
Yes.
Basically, break these things, and you're going to owe Marvel damages, financial damages. Spider-Man and Peter Parker had to have certain traits in order to qualify as Spider-Man. He couldn't torture. He won't kill unless it's out of self-defense. He won't sell drugs. He won't smoke cigarettes. But the last mandatory trait, Spider-Man is not a homosexual, unless Marvel has portrayed that alter ego as a homosexual. And while many of these traits are conditional and can be broken if Spider-Man wears the black symbiote suit, Spider-Man's sexuality is not one of those things that the symbiote can change. Penalty of breaking that?
Would he really want that? For it to be, because the black suit means like you're doing evil things. You really want?
Yeah, that's one of the funny.
I don't think that's the implication.
Like for some reason, like that's one of the funny things. It's like they don't care if a character is like evil and does like bad representation, and that would like portray them negatively. It's like, oh, a major character, because it's like they don't, because that's the thing. They don't care about them as a character.
No,
they care that they're part of a major franchise. So like, even if it's an evil character that's terrible and is a poor representation of any community due to how evil they are, they're part of a major franchise, so it doesn't really matter to them.
Mm-hmm.
No, I just found it funny because it's like he's kind of like saying it like, oh my gosh, even the black suit Spider-Man isn't an exemption. I'm like, you really would not want that, because then that would mean that being gay is evil.
Plus, it is an exception. You said that unless the alter ego is also also gay. So, like, I mean, I guess not in a. I guess technically, like, I guess he's both right and wrong. Like, it's not like the typical Venom symbiote, but if there is an alter ego, like, I guess that is kind of muddy. So.
Anyway,
legal damages to the Spider-Man brand. Legal damage.
Hang on, who just joined? Also, Jan, hello there.
Hi.
Hello there.
Hello.
Newbie. I just about made it.
We've already started a little bit ahead without you, but yeah. Anyone want to catch?
Only a tenth of the way in.
Really didn't that much.
Yeah, we didn't do. Yeah. Oh. Anyways, Jan. So, Jan, apparently Spider-Man legally cannot be gay. What are your thoughts on that? As in, there's a legal stipulation. As in, you will get sued for damages to the brand if you portray Peter Parker as gay. What are your opinions on that?
Wait, is that real? Are you not fucking with me?
Yeah, as part of the Amazing Spider-Man films, as you can see right here. So basically, it's like Spider-Man. If he's ever depicted on film, he has to not do these things. He has to be a guy. He can't torture people, and you can read the rest. And at the bottom it says he can't be a homosexual.
And this is from the Sony leaked emails from like 2013-ish, I think it was.
Yeah, somewhere around there, yeah.
I mean, I think it's funny as fuck, but other than that, I don't really care. Like, it's kind of funny, though.
Did you know that if he's in the black suit that he can smoke, though?
Yes.
but he can't curse. Even if the black symbiote. The black symbiote, no, it's like killing and smoking and selling illegal drugs is fine, but he can't be a potty mouth.
Yes.
Potty mouth. He cannot be a potty mouth. Like, even the symbiote can't go that far.
I'm just laughing at half evil Spider-Man where he's still kind of a dork, but he's trying to act evil, like in his black suit. He just has all these weird limitations on him, though. He's just like, I'm totally evil, guys. Sure.
This is like the most corporate fucking like corpo list I have ever seen. It's the fucking shit. Does not sell, distribute illegal drugs, so he's allowed to possess them? Question mark.
Yes.
He can give them away for free as well, because he's. Oh, I'm sorry, distribute. Never mind, they covered that.
So you're saying that he can have like a gram on him, but he can't explain how or where, like when he got it, or what his intents for it are.
He's getting arrested. This is my other friend's suit. No.
Yes. Anyway.
Oh god.
Spider-Man's sexuality is not one of those things that the symbiote can change. Penalty of breaking that? Legal damages to the Spider-Man brand, legal damages to Marvel Comics, and thus now the Disney Corporation. This means you cannot make Spider-Man a homosexual.
Can I just say, fuck, there's no fucking way they would take that to court in Anno Domini 2025, by the way.
No.
Actually, no shot.
That would, like...
Yeah, like,
I mean,
that would...
I don't even know if that, like... I honestly don't even know if that, like... Is that even still in effect today? I don't think it is.
I don't think it is, because the Amazing films aren't being made anymore. No.
There needs to be
I think the Amazing films aren't being made because Amazing Spider-Man 2 failed so spectacularly.
There needs to be a black comedy movie about like one of the like hyper corporate suits whose like job is to bring down the hammer on like fan art depicting Spider-Man as a homosexual.
Well, I'm just laughing because if they took away the restriction and they made it so the black suit, you know, that he could be gay whenever he had the black suit, like whenever it's corrupting his mind or whatever, it's like, yes, Peter, kill Doc Ock, yes, and then fuck Harry in the ass. Wait, what? Shut up, just do it.
I would watch the shit out of that movie.
Doc Ock. Doc Ock is a villain.
And then Spider-Man's like, wait, are you saying that it's evil to do that? And the symbiote's like, well, no, I'm totally tolerant, bro. I just...
That's like, God, I can already see that being like a robot chicken sketch or something.
Yeah. The symbiote is secretly homophobic.
I could low-key see, if Disney had rights, I could low-key see it being like, oh, the symbiote makes him gay, you see, you want to really... And then there'd be some like guy, like some corporate dude being like, oh yeah, we want to really explore the struggle with like gay identity. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
See,
if you're make him gay.
If you're gonna make it do anything sexually, it would obviously make him into Japanese girls because of the hentai tentacles and all the shit that it gives him the ability to do.
Actually.
Anyway.
Unless Marvel Comics creates a version of Spider-Man that is also homosexual. Now, you might be thinking, well, that doesn't count bisexuality. That means Andrew's in the clear, right? Well, hold on to that for a second, because then there's the traits of Peter Parker. He has to be Caucasian, he has to be male, and he has to be heterosexual. On one hand, someone can say, well, it makes sense. You know, there's numerous female love interests for Spider-Man in the comics, and if you make him gay, that cuts off the potential for those characters.
Yes.
Gwen Stacy, Mary Jane, Felicia Hardy, yes, of course. But
yes.
If you change Spider-Man's sexuality, that would force Sony to diverge further from the comics, and thus muddy the recognition of the brand. Marvel Comics can do that, but not Sony. They're a third party. Very famously, there were fan campaigns to have...
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, I heard about, Donald... I heard about, like, Donald Glover, the whole Donald Glover, Miles Morales thing. I think he actually brought it up in his stand... in one of his...
He brought it up in a comedy sketch, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, to be honest, I mean, if it ended up happening, honestly... I wouldn't mind it. I mean, Donald Glover's a funny guy, and I think he could probably play a good Miles Morales.
He's very talented.
I can see the vision.
He is really
good.
Happened
a few years too late. Yeah.
Obviously 2 years too late, but given around the time where he would be able to, then yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, also this feels kind of, I imagine the point here is like, oh, this is bad that this list exists, right? But I mean, if I was to devil's advocate, it's like, yeah, the recognizability for Peter Parker makes sense, and especially in comics, you can just make a different Spider-Man, right? At that point, like
But
there's
again,
how
it's
many
like these
fucking
people,
Spider-Man
again,
out there? Yeah.
Way too many at
because
this
these people
point.
don't want to like make a different Spider-Man because people recognize Peter Parker
yeah.
because like it would be too different and blah 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 because you can't. It's like the only like exception is like the only one. I mean,
that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, I feel that argument is like that's a note, like that might have been gold in like 2015, but that's a non-starter ever since Spider-Verse came out. I feel because like Spider-Verse destroyed that logic.
Oh yeah, I guess that is true, but at the same time, I feel like the thing is, it's like a lot. Like the thing is, like with Peter, a lot of like it's very hard for a Spider-Man that isn't named Peter Parker to get like even with Spider-Verse, I still feel like it is kind of hard.
Well, yeah, it's certainly harder, but like Spider-Verse kind of proved that if you make a good product, you're right, it's harder, right? Because there's going to be a contingent, like let's say that they're like a focus group A who are just going to be, no, we only want to see Peter Parker and his story, right? So they're like, okay, you're an instant loss with them, right? But then conversely, there's people who maybe haven't heard of Spider-Man or have no interest of Spider-Man because he is Peter Parker, and they're going to go watch, a movie with like Miles Morales, like. So, for example, the black community is going to be more inclined to watch a Miles Morales movie than a Peter Parker, on average, I would expect, right? I don't actually know what the numbers on that would be or how you even get them, but you know what I mean? So, like, it's a risk, I'll grant that, but it's a risk that has, proven that it can be well worth it if the execution is there, right? So, I wouldn't consider this to be a massive detriment.
Well, and I think this list or a version of it should maybe exist for basically every character. And I can't think of one that started off, gay in comics or whatever. But any character that is like that, I would hope that part of their list is, cannot be straight. Like you shouldn't. You should have defined characters. Is basically what I'm saying. Like because if a character's not defined, then it doesn't really mean anything. To a certain extent, you can have some wiggle room. But
it's like obviously minor adaptation. Like obviously minor things can be changed depending on either the actor playing them, or the the nature of the thing. Because obviously certain character traits would feel awkward in like a different like tone. But it's like when you get to a point, but there's just a point where there's just so many changes that it's not the same character. It's like the classic riddle of if I replace all the parts of a car, is it the same car?
Yeah, the Theseus. Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Donald Glover play Spider-Man after Tobey Maguire left the role. This is before Andrew Garfield was officially cast. It was a massive fan campaign, gigantic. I think it's very interesting how, after this campaign, Marvel Comics brought in Miles Morales, someone to inherit the role of Ultimate Spider-Man after Ultimate Peter Parker was slain in a battle. Miles Morales, a biracial, black and Latino Spider-Man, who in essence seemed to break every single rule Marvel had forced Sony to obey. And it's no surprise that Sony would then later jump at the chance to feature Miles Morales in their animated Spider-Man.
I don't want to be nitpicky, but like, why would we find that interesting with the information we've just been provided, right? It's like a case of, Donald Glover was a popular pick, so they were like, all right, let's make a Spider-Man that a Donald Glover type, like an actor like Donald Glover could portray, because there's clearly a demand for this, like, I don't think it's...
Well, and just because there's a rule doesn't mean everybody wants to break it all the time. Yeah, and
it's like, that just seems to follow, right?
Like, it doesn't really break the rules because those rules only applied to Peter Parker.
Spider-Man,
exactly. The character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like studios can have a bad like finger on the pulse of what their audience wants all the time, right? Like it's not a surprise. So like maybe that's like a fair thing to say. I feel the connection here is legitimate, but also I don't think it's that surprising.
Also, he's saying it's like, oh well, Miles Morales came along and he broke all the freaking rules that that Sony had to put up with. It's like, it's like, my guy, Miles, much as I loathe him, he debuted in a comic book line that was an alternate continuity where greater amounts of experimentation were allowed, right? Because there's not the Ultimate books. There is not a chance in hell that in the main 616 books that Marvel would kill Peter Parker off and replace him with Miles Morales. Not a chance at all. But with the Ultimate books, which typically allowed dead characters to stay dead, and also allowed new ideas to pop up, of course Miles would be more welcome there. So he's making a false equivalence right here, and plus the comic book industry and the movie industry work so differently, my guy. So he's making a false equivalence.
I'm going to stick up as far as character definition goes for Miles Morales here and say that they have bastardized him recently.
Yes.
By they start giving him a sword.
An
they start giving him
sword.
Fucking powers on top of powers on top of powers. He already had invisibility and venom shocking and all these things. And this is where that path takes you, though. Whenever a character can't be defined anymore, then it's like, well, every new writer is just going to take it a step further to the point where it becomes unrecognizable. A guy running around with an electric sword does not seem like any Spider-Man to me.
No.
Yeah, which happens a lot with comic. Like, this is kind of the other thing, as I think Backseat pointed out accurately. This is what comic books are prone towards, right? It's like, okay, who the fuck is going to write this one? Fuck it, just give it to him. Yeah, he wants that. He wants to give him a sword. Sure, whatever. Who gives a shit? Do that, right? Like, that happens a lot more in comic books than it happens in film, because film is first of all, it's more expensive to produce a movie than it is to write a comic book. That's not even close, and so there's going to be fewer of them, and so the movie version also is going to reach a larger audience, right? Necessarily, so there's going to be more. We're going to have to play with in a more restricted field than in a comic book, right?
Well, and it used to be that writers would sort of mentor and hand off to each other in the most successful long-running comic book runs. It wasn't, I took over this thing, so now I'm going to aggressively change it because these elements were problematic or something, or I can push this new... It was more like, oh, I love this story, I love this character, and now I'm going to continue that. I'm going to tell my own story, sure, but I'm going to respect the previous author's continuity, for one, and which brings with it a lot of character traits that have obviously been taken on, but also I'm going to respect the character traits of this character that I'm taking over that have been established by those before me.
I feel like that happens probably less than you think. Like I would assume most people do have legitimately good intentions and aren't like purposefully trying to change things, like problematic or not. Like I think more people deserve the benefit of the doubt, particularly the massive ecosystem and just how much overhead that exists in like being in the creative industry these days. I'm sure it's far from as simple as people would want. And as somebody in the creative industry, like I don't get to make creative things exactly how I want to, rarely ever. And I'm sure that's the exact same way in a lot of like comic and movie stuff. So I personally try to give like people working with these things that have been on for so long the benefit of the doubt, considering how much of a massive thing they've become.
I was gonna say, I feel I'm kind of in the middle on it, where like I agree that there's more. I think there's more of a trend now towards the core continuities are still fairly protected on the whole, but there's more of a willingness, for better or worse, to do the like alternative storyline stuff, right? Them to include those characters in the main storyline, if that makes sense, right? So like I think in general you see more quote unquote experimentation, but a lot of them tend to be. Which is what we like, people perceive it to be like the agenda-driven stuff, right, so to speak.
Yes.
But they tend to go pretty far out of their way to make them either easily excisable from canon or not part of canon, full stop, because they want to protect the like main line thing, right?
Yes.
Generally. That's it. I don't keep up with comics too much, so that's just my impression. But.
Yeah. Anyway.
Spider-Verse films, where the theme of the film is anyone can be Spider-Man.
Anyone can wear the mask. You could wear the mask.
So maybe the mainstream Peter Parker can't be gay, but there are other Spider people who are gay, right? Or bi, or trans. Well, that's a question I raised back in...
Oh, this fucking article that he wrote.
That's right. Well, yeah, that's right. It used to be writer for CBR.
Yeah, right.
I think he made that article.
This is where I first figured out that Ant existed back before he slotted himself as my archenemy. This was my introduction to him.
I found out about this much later. I found out about Ant because of his tweet pointing out
Twitter. Same for me. He was like on Twitter a lot, and I was like, wow, he says a lot of stupid shit sometimes.
CBR, the most botted, pushed thing on Twitter.
Yeah,
I see those all the time, despite not following them or liking or anything.
Yes.
Well, CBR is like CBR is like one of them. Like, this is a person who's like quote unquote in the space, but like basically like broadcasting their opinion about it, right? It's not like
it's like websites like this, websites like this,
like Screen Rant and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah. Websites like CBR and Screen Rant are a dime a dozen. Only reason Screen Rant has any relevance is pitch meetings, and even then they eventually left.
Yeah.
Yep. Back in 2019. Seriously, 5 years ago. Oh God, how long?
You can look at Andy's like, oh God, I've been doing this bullshit for 5 years. Where is my life gone?
It is kind of like I do kind of feel that because it is kind of crazy. Like I literally published my first ever review video in like 2019. Like before I did my review videos, I mainly use my YouTube account to just like publish like my old graphic design projects. Then I just kind of got the idea to like make reviews of movies, defending movies, and I just kind of recorded an impromptu Howard the Duck review in 2019, and and that was like my first ever video, and I think to date it's the most popular video on my channel. It's like it's insane that much time.
Every day I wake up and realize there's been half a decade since I started doing my studies and everything, like that I went to uni. It's frightening to me, dude. It's like fucking
Ant is all like, what have I been doing with my life? Fuck my life so much, man. Anyway,
the pandemic had that effect on me, especially. To be fair, I was like, what the fuck happened to those 3 years? Anyway, sorry.
God, how long have I been on the internet for? That is
too long.
Way too long. Yes.
Too long. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Anyway, this is back when I contributed to CBR regularly, a website that I could probably do an entire video about at some point to.
That'll be the day.
Discuss their
to be fair, I would. That is the one video of his I would legitimately be interested in, because I would be interested to see how CBR worked. He doesn't work with them anymore. I imagine.
No,
right?
Because he was too pathetic even for them.
Whenever there's like a person who was with a thing and they're independent now, it tends to be there probably wasn't on the best of terms. They parted ways. Tend to be the case, right? But it's just.
Well, then you just sue whoever you can blame yourself getting fired on, as
get rich like a normal person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, they fired me because this guy made YouTube videos.
In the words of J. Jonah Jameson, get rich like a normal person.
Yeah.
What?
Process, but I'll hold back on that for now. I brought up that same question, coming to a similar conclusion. Why couldn't there be a queer Spider-Man character in the Spider-Verse, in the expansive universe of different alternate Spider-Man? Why do all of them have to be heterosexual? And since that article was written, there've been multiple...
Because all of them were created that way.
Well, it's not that they were like forced to. It's just that they happened to be. I mean, it is kind of unfortunate that a lot of characters are stuck in the default, but that's just kind of.
I was gonna say,
I was gonna say, fuck that. How go ahead. They write them, that's just kind of how the it's just kind of a roll of the dice. People just think a character. They're like, okay, do they have this trait? They have that trait. It's just kind of really character creation really is I mean, it's not far off from an actual game character creation. You take a trait, you just think about what trait would be natural for that character to have. It's kind of like a gamble. And unfortunately, people tend to view characters being straight as the default. It just happens.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say one thing, because I feel, we're giving him the, it's true that couldn't be. It's like, no, fuck that, that could be. It absolutely could be. It's just they've not written that story yet. But like the framing of this is like, why couldn't there be? It's like as if the answer is presumptively and prescriptively no. Of course it isn't. That could be. If you're asking why they haven't written it, that could be a plurality of factors, right?
I would assume, as somebody who isn't like super duper familiar with like all the comics and stuff, is like with a lot of this stuff and the time periods in which they were created in like the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, like there really wasn't a lot of room for a lot of like broader representation in that stuff. So a lot of these like very iconic defined characters are like quote unquote the default straight white big buff guy, and that's why, like, personally, I think there should be more room when it comes to experimenting with that stuff, even with more established characters. Like I think like it's the same context with how like some people are mad now that like a black guy got cast as Snape. It's like, who cares? Like, who cares?
I mean, for my opinion, I think part of it is because of I think a part of it is due to the implications, because in the movie, like, basically, Harry Potter's dad, when they were young, he basically bullied Snape.
Yeah.
It's
like the Hermione thing.
And so, assuming they keep Harry Potter, and assuming they keep, like, Harry's dad and mom's race the same, which I presume they will, they could, like, assuming they do, a white guy bullying a black guy over his love for a black girl and hanging him, that has like really bad optics. So
I mean,
it's the same thing as with. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No. Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say that does feel very in line with a lot of the very strange, like racist, classist
That's
things
like,
within
you
Harry
really
Potter.
you didn't think that changed through, now did you?
And if anything, like I think something like that would add more depth to like the kind of liberal void that is Harry Potter as a whole. Like I think there needs to be.
Thing with,
but I'm just saying.
With Hermione,
it's just like it's clear that they didn't really intend. It's just like, yeah, that would be interesting if they intended it, but the thing is, they really didn't. They just
didn't.
And that brings up a like very interesting conversation, I think, about like the perception of like changing someone's race, for example, and how those implications are seen. It's like you could see it as like, yes, this is an act of like now it becomes a racist implication, or it could just be like a black dude in the same situation that isn't necessarily racist, but like it is coded as being right. It's this whole interesting, complicated, like philosophical experiment of like how people view that stuff. I think it's very interesting.
This has actually already happened though. It's and kind of J.K. Rowling brought it on herself, but like are you familiar with the Hermione being black thing? Because this isn't a normal thing for Harry Potter. Where it's like she tried to post hoc like canonize. Oh, she's actually been black all along, right? Like Hermione was always black. But that makes it so there's Hermione in the book specifically has a very strong stance against like the practice of effectively slavery with the house elves, and she's like shot down by everyone as being like, oh, how ridiculous. She's being and they want to be enslaved, and it's like if she's black, it's like, oh. I feel that this is a little bit more charged than perhaps the book for 13-year-olds intended it to be.
Yeah, it's complicated. And anyways, I got a bounce for D&D. I know we didn't get super far into this, but I'll watch
the writers of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I'll the worst people ever. Well, I'll watch the rest of this on my own time, but I gotta say, so far he isn't feeling like a great arch nemesis. I'm not super impressed.
No, you basically have to get further into his videos before you get into his bad faith arguments.
I'd be down to watch a and video with you, Noah, if you want to on your own time, if you're free sometime, because he's interesting. I'll say that much.
Yes.
Sure. I'm down. And the only thing I will say is, even though you don't like him, at least try to be a little nicer.
Nice.
A little bit nicer. Anyways,
wait. First thing, what class do you play in D&D? That's the last thing I'll ask you.
Oh, so
what are you playing?
First, I say D&D, but we're actually playing like
Pathfinder?
Escape.
Okay.
Yeah. None of us really like the D&D rule set. It's kind of cumbersome and
Based.
boring and annoying.
Based.
So like we play like a bunch of tabletop RPGs that are just not D&D because D&D kind of sucks ass.
True. Facts.
Yes. Thank you. Facts. Bars. Okay. I will catch you boys
See
later.
you, man. Yeah, have a good one, man.
Bounce.
Just
To me, it's
All
like
right.
just don't
face
over.
the opinions.
To me, it's like it's so simple to me. It's like if you want, I'm sure that there's plenty. Like Africa is a whole continent. If you need a bunch of black characters, I'm sure that there are stories from there, and I'm sure that there's mythology for there that you can make stories of. And there's so much like, why does everything have to cater to, or not even cater, just like check all these boxes? It's like they're overcomplicating something that should be simple. Just keep it how it was. In certain immutable characteristics are there, yes, whenever he keeps asking why not, it's like, well, why are you so determined to change this particular character to be this particular thing?
Well,
like, what is
I
your
feel
weird
the-
obsession with this?
I feel the argument from his preference would almost from anti-main would almost certainly be because it includes people, which is intrinsically good. But it's like, well, I mean, yeah, but it's also, can you not then argue that it's intrinsically bad to change something with no respect for continuity, right? And that's like, what do you value more, right?
Yeah, you can include people in a million different ways without changing have Spider-Man meet a new powerful ally who happens to be gay. That's totally fine. It's like you can even have it in Spider-Man stories. Like, it's fine.
Well, you'll note this is why, like, the across the board for people on kind of Ant's team, so to speak, seems to be I guess, not the destruction of, but like the insertion of the idea that continuity ought not to always be strictly followed, because they need to get that one in for anything else to be able to stand, because otherwise it's just an instant, well, why don't you like this? Oh, because it breaks continuity, right? And it's like, what do you do with that?
To me, this shit is a content farm for this guy in the same way that Mike Zero content farms the anti-woke shit. It's like, whenever you're constantly bringing up, let's change this character to be this arbitrary thing, like you're just you're trying to manufacture subjects that people weren't even naturally thinking of. And they wouldn't even care about this aspect of they would care if it's changed, but it's like they're not even thinking about this aspect of the character changing, and then you have to bring it up, and then you have to make it an issue, and then you'll make issues about that issue, and you'll report on the backlash to it and all that shit.
It's interesting you say that, because I completely agree. I feel like the quote unquote, like, as frustrating as I find it, like the whole anti-woke and woke stuff, the anti-woke side is 1,000,000,000,000% because of a Streisand effect, which is like the constant bringing of attention to, oh, look at this cool new black, replacement character we've done in this, like we replaced a white character with a black one. Isn't we only so cool? Where if they didn't bring attention to it, I don't think many people would really notice, or give a fuck, right? But it's like, it's just extolled as like, oh, this is the reason you should watch our product. But it's like, well, no.
It's interesting you say that, because I certainly got hooked on to, and Mahler's not even like an anti-woke guy. He's just a strictly writing guy, but it happens to bring up because one, a lot of times breeds the other, because my definition, at least of woke, is whenever you start putting these weird, just random characteristics and checked boxes above your basic storytelling, and that naturally breeds bad writing. So that's why he ends up on the same side as a Gary or a critical drinker who happen to focus more on that, and he happens to naturally align with them more, because it does come down to storytelling in the end. And it's kind of like, I used to watch Collider and shit, and as the movies got worse and they kept praising them for these random ass characteristics, where they were like, well, we're not going to be mean to Black Panther because it has this representation, so we have to just act like it's this perfect movie and we're going to nominate it for Best Picture. And I'm just like, this seems a little weird. I don't think it was that great.
Dude,
this seems unnatural.
That year for Oscars was so fucked. It was like Black Panther and Bohemian Rhapsody both got nominated for Best Picture, where it's just like, bro, what the fuck do you mean?
And that's what bred their whole audience, though, is the thing. Like, it was so unnatural, and you were forcing it so much, and then you would call anyone who didn't like it bigoted, and that started with The Last Jedi, where it was like, oh, you don't like it, you're a sexist, you just don't like a woman having power like Holdo. I'm like, no, Leia had power. I didn't think she was shit like Holdo. Like, it becomes this whole thing.
Yeah,
it's
what was
like
it? It was 2018, 2019. It was like that was the most coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb of like fucking Best Picture nominees. Because on the one end you had fucking Bohemian Rhapsody and Black Panther, and the other hand you had like Roma and Green Book and shit like that. It was like, yeah, no, these are not the same movies. Like,
yeah,
I'm
and then
sorry.
that was the other one. Yeah, they all freaked out at Green Book.
Go,
Yeah.
and it was. I mean, I'm kind of biased because I really like Queen, but I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody was like fine for what it was.
My brother was crying because he's
think
just not used to biopics. Yeah.
I think it was possible for what it was, but to nominate it for Best Picture is absolutely ridiculous.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like, yeah,
I wouldn't-
definitely. Like, there are certain films where, like, for example, like if someone nominated, see, let me think. Like, what's a movie that I really like but I don't like love? Like,
Batman and Robin.
Okay, like how about like Weekend at Bernie's? Weekend at Bernie's is a good example.
Yes,
Like,
yeah.
I like Weekend at Bernie's. It's a pretty like solid like movie. It's a pretty decent, fun little comedy. If Weekend at Bernie's was nominated for Best Picture, I would be like, wait, what?
You would have
Well,
been Kyle Katarn. You would have been. Wait, what?
Well, it's the same thing with Barbie and Oppenheimer. Like years later, it's like, yeah, listen, you can like Barbie. I get why like girls especially would like Barbie, but like to pretend it's as good it's worthy to be even in the same conversation as Oppenheimer is farcical.
Oh,
Like,
okay, wait, I mean Barbie and Oppenheimer was a very different thing because the thing about Barbie and Oppenheimer was basically Barbie and Oppenheimer just happened to be in like the same release date, and that basically
I mean, like they were both nominated for Best Picture, though. I'm pretty sure.
Two completely different films, so that's kind of a very like different ballpark.
No, you're missing me. I'm just saying that Barbie and Oppenheimer were both also nominated for Best Picture. I'm pretty sure, unless I'm massively misremembering. And then
I think so. Yeah, and then oh my god, and then what's funny is the people that got like incredibly angry at "I'm Just Ken" winning Best Song, like getting upset that like, oh my god, like it's like, oh my god, the Man Song won for the Woman movie. That was like, this is like criticized.
It's pretty funny.
Criticizing, no, touch grass, touch all of the
I was gonna
grass.
say it's like it's not a meaningful thing at all, but like it's pretty funny. Like you gotta admit.
I mean, it's funny in like that sense, but the fact that people were legit.
Oh yeah, no, those people are crazy. Yeah, like
Like the fact that like it's like, I mean, yeah, it's kind of funny in like an ironic sense, and the fact that like even Ryan Gosling himself was surprised by it is kind of funny. But the fact that people were legit incredibly upset about this, like that, I just think is just taking it too far.
Oh yeah, no,
like,
well that's you're terminally online. You have lost the game at that point. Yeah, no, definitely.
To me, that actually relates back to Spider-Man because it becomes a never-ending thing to the point where the character becomes unrecognizable because it's like, okay, now you've done Black Spider-Man. Okay, well, what about the Black queer community? Oh, okay, well, now we'll make Spider-Man Black and queer. Okay, well, or Peter Parker, I'll say, because you can obviously have multiverse of Spider-Man, whatever. But like, okay, so now we changed that. Okay, well, now the people who have blonde hair, who dye their hair blonde that are Black also don't feel represented. So now we're going to change that about Spider-Man. And it's like chasing diversity, for lack of a better word, chasing the check boxes is a never-ending cycle, and it comes to hit you in that where like you award something that's even part of something people liked, and they go, wait, no, you can't award that. That's the man part of the woman thing. It's like, oh my gosh, once you start catering to these people, you are in a never-winning battle. It's like
once you bend the knee, they got you by the balls.
Yeah, you'll just be chasing your tail forever.
Yeah, and I feel that a lot of this could benefit from just like with both like the like the extreme sides of both of the like woke / anti-woke teams could benefit from. Hey guys, could we just take this shit less seriously for a little bit? It's just like at the end of the day, it's like, okay, yeah, sure. Sometimes it's cringe, but like it doesn't matter. Like, it's funny because I had so like my friends are pretty liberal in real life, and there was a speaking of D&D incidentally, there was an artwork for a D&D character, and it was like supposed to be like an adventurer, right? And she had like a wheelchair or something. It was this is a person in a wheelchair. They're an adventurer. And I was like, that shit's goofy. And they were like, oh, what do you mean? Like it's like able, it's like it's like ableist to say that. It's like this is like disabled people get representation. I'm like, hey man, I'm not saying it can't be a thing. I'm not saying you can't allow it to be a thing. I just think that it's fucking silly. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, and extremism breeds extremism. So a lot of the
exactly.
anti-woke stuff that then creeps up that's like seems super hypersensitive, where it's like Kingdom Come Deliverance has the one, gay possible romance somewhere, and it's just like, all right, hold on. Like, I'm not even mad about that. Like, I don't.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah, like that's a 100-hour RPG where it's one possible path, and it's being like purity tests are just bad either way. And if you insult something for lack of diversity, and if that's like all you have bad to say about it, I'm going to say that you're an idiot. And if you insult something just because it has diversity and it, and it's otherwise great, then I'm also going to say you're an idiot. Like that's the extremism.
I mean, it's like that's kind of the problem, because it's like there are people in the anti-woke community that are bad faith actors. People like Andy Pants Gaming,
John DeLorean is a big one for me.
Like people ranting for vengeance, people like that.
Oh yeah, ranting for vengeance is a big one too.
It's hard to call these people out when there are people in that like Gaming Circle Jerk and r/Sultry than Crate that like group all the anti-woke people together. It's just kind of a problem. It's just kind of a problem because there's like so many. It's just kind of hard because there's like so many. It's just kind of hard because there's just so many people inside the community that all kind of have different ideals. Like you have the more moderate anti-woke people. You have like you have people like John Del Rose that are more like like Christian conservative. You have grifters like Andy Pants Gaming, and then you have people like Synthetic Man. It's kind of a whole hodgepodge.
Well, I wouldn't exactly call Synthetic Man people, just to be clear. No, I get you. Like, I think that this is a lot to do though with like where people's like natural like predisposition lie on some level, because the people on the moderates on the other side would like have the same opinion of those who like the moderates on the woke side would have the same like kind of view of the anti-woke as a like as you said as a whole as the people on the anti-woke side have of the woke side, right? It's a case of it's important to recognize that the loudest people or the most absurd people aren't actually the ones worth engaging with, right? Because they're not going to move no matter what you could possibly tell them, right?
It's like not every anti-woke person is like Synthetic Man, because there are like
exactly
there are more moderates, because I generally like like when representation is in stuff, I just want it to be well made. I don't want pandering rainbow capitalists garbage. Well made.
Yeah, you can have beautiful stories with it for sure, and it's just like in the end, if it becomes your primary objective, either way, if your primary objective when making a film is to check all the boxes, then it's naturally going to be shit. If your primary objective when making the film, and I think even Jeremy from Geeks Gamers brings this up too, he's like, I don't want people running around with MAGA hats, of course. Like, I don't want it in the opposite direction. Like, if that becomes the primary identity of your film, then that's bad too.
Because it's like, I think a lot of people, because I think that's the thing, because it's like when it comes to like people like John Del Rose or Ranting for Vengeance or other people, they're basically activists, but on the opposite end of the spectrum.
I will
right what people like Alyssa Mercante are to the left.
Yeah, exactly. And like with people, I don't know. I just find it funny with like people like John De La Rosa, like you brought up Kingdom Come Deliverance and the gay sexy. It's like, I promise you that all the like extremely right wing people, more of them found the gay sex scene than actual gay people. All right, because they were the ones looking for it. It's like,
like I'm looking right now. I'm playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I am definitely going to try and get the weirdest possible romance in there.
Hell yeah!
But I'm going to laugh at it. I'm going to laugh at it just to.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing it to be pissed off about it. I'm just going to say, oh, Ubisoft.
Ubisoft, you made Assassin's Creed Origins, but shit again for the 10th time in a row. Anyway, yeah, sorry, and video. We were that was an EFAP level.
Moving on.
Queer Spider-Man. First, there was Cooper Cohen, known as the Webweaver. Cooper hails from Earth 71490, and in this universe, he's a boy who grew up alongside Peter Parker, harboring a hidden crush on Peter. And he saves Peter from the radioactive spider when it gets irradiated. And he ultimately gains the powers of the Spider-Man himself. Now, there's a couple of things here that I think are very interesting. For one, Cohen and Parker do end up going on a date. Kinda. Cohen gets stood up at a date, Peter bumps into him, and they have a bro date. You know, a bromance, if you were. And then afterwards, they go to college. Cohen goes to...
And is this a legit romance, or is it just two dudes going on like a mutual hangout?
Is anyone else having screen troubles? I can't really see the
it's
screen.
frozen. It's frozen for me. If you could like close and reopen it.
Yeah, I can hear it. But yeah, the video. Yeah.
All right. Shit. All right. Hold on. I am going to stop streaming, and I'm going to start restreaming. Fuck! We're having fucking technical difficulties again. Shit! Damn! Alright, folks, we will be right back. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We apologize for the technical difficulties. Moving on.
Afterwards, they go to college. Cohen goes to fashion school. Peter Parker goes to Empire State. And they become roommates. You see, they were roommates.
Oh
my god, they were roommates.
Cohen does lean a little too heavily into some queer stereotypes. He's a runway model photographer. He studies fashion. He dresses...
So what?
That's a problem now? What?
Man, this dude would hate The Devil Wears Prada. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I've never really seen it. I've heard of that movie, but I've never really seen it.
Yeah,
well, you see what he dresses like. And that's not bad inherently. Queer people can express their queerness however they want. But it's interesting that the first Spider-Man is so flamboyant, which some can say is problematic. I personally do not. I'm just bringing it up because it's worth discussing. I see this personally.
Some could say it's problematic.
Cohen is not the only gay Spider-Man. Or rather, Spider-Person. There's the Sun Spider, Charlotte Weber, from Earth 223.
Oh, is this the fucking stilt bitch?
Charlotte Webb, you get it? You get the pun?
Fucking who? I don't know about her at all.
I know.
You get the jokes here? Okay.
I know.
Charlotte was bitten by radioactive...
Yeah.
Let him speak. He goes over this stupid shit.
Okay.
Spider. I know, shocking. But what makes her interesting is that she has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS. She uses a wheelchair as a civilian, but she uses crutches while jumping from web to web and wall crawling.
Her fucking crutches are her web shooters.
Okay. Perfect example. Perfect example.
Power is his agility. Like
perfect example of what I was talking about.
That just kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
But why are her crutches her web?
That's like having a Aquaman that's afraid of water.
Yes.
But like, isn't it completely impractical to make like she still can use her arms? So why wouldn't she just have normal web shooters?
Well,
because she wouldn't be Spider-Man if she wasn't swinging around New York, John.
But I mean, like somebody said, is it serious that her like walking things are her web shooters? Because that just makes it an unnatural long appendage, and it's harder to shoot
this is why people made fun of it, because it's so fucking stupid.
Yeah, like this is. I was gonna say perfect example to like the D&D story I made. Like this. Okay, this. Look, if someone tells me they like this, fine. Hey, you're allowed to like it. But it's goofy. Can we just agree, like that it's silly that this person has fucking web shooters that are their fucking crutches? Like there's so many. And like the reason it's goofy, for the record, is because there's so many better ways you could do this, right? Like isn't Barbara Gordon was paraplegic, right? I'm pretty sure.
Oracle, yeah.
For like a while, and like she was still a character who had a role and things to do. Like you can tell these stories without having them also be crime fighters, because it's like. It's just a little silly.
Anybody who says that anybody who can't admit that this is goofy, like the coolest people of any group, I don't care if you're white guys, gay, disabled, whatever. Yeah. The coolest people are normally the self-deprecating ones. The coolest disabled people would make fun of this.
Yeah, I get that this is comic books, and I get that comic books have a lot of out there concepts and ideas, but they're still supposed to be a lot more sophisticated than this.
Well, I would say, if someone asked me like, oh, is this more silly than like Multiverse of Madness? I'd be like, oh, Multiverse of Madness is probably sillier, right? But like, in terms of, just like at face value looking at this, how can you expect me to not be like, okay, that's a little silly, right? Like, come on.
It kind of feels like something that would be in like a parody.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the idea of like, it just feels like something that's like inherently like ridiculous.
Especially since you could very easily have her have like like a Charles Xavier thing. She could have other abilities. You could have her use a suit, right? Like that is like a prosthetic, kind of like Iron Man suit is basically a prosthetic, right? Per his own words.
Kind of,
so, like,
yeah.
Yes, so like there's a bunch of other ways you could do this, but like just oh no, she needs to have crutches. It's like what? Why? But I feel like they struck gold with Daredevil. You know what I mean? With Daredevil, it's like okay, it's just just believable enough. That like people are very much able to look past it and take it seriously.
Yeah, I mean, at least, yeah.
This is like I don't know.
In fighting crime, she has extreme flexibility, which gives her a special ability. Now, she's also queer. She's either a lesbian or bisexual. It's not really established, though she does have like a gay flag blanket on her legs in a wheelchair, so I assume that means she does have like a gay flag.
Can that not just be a rainbow dress? I'm so sorry. How do we know that's a gay flag blanket dress?
I mean, it's
what?
Yeah, I mean, it's like that. That's it. I mean,
what?
Given how comic books tend to be very clunky, it very well could be. But like, you do realize straight people can love rainbows. Like, I love
exactly.
Rainbows. Right. Like, rainbows aren't just for gay people. Like, they're for everyone. Rainbows are cool.
Yeah, like I don't understand how. Like, sorry, I'm sure that she possibly is, but like this is a weird thing to reference. Is like she has rainbow stuff on her, therefore gay. What?
Blanket on her legs in a wheelchair, so I assume that means she's probably a lesbian, but I digress. But one more thing about Sun Spider. She's the only queer spider person to show up in film. In fact, she appeared just recently in Across the Spider-Verse.
I'm a huge fan of your work.
She was stupid there and stupid in the books.
Get it? Crutch.
So we have a gay spider person.
I was like gonna say, like for a second, I was like, okay, well that's like a lot more believable when she has like a mech thing, right? But then she still used the crutches. I was like, alright, that's still kind of silly. But,
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
In a movie now. Granted, the film doesn't explicitly showcase her sexuality, but hey, that's still something incredible. So ultimately, in the years following my article, everything I asked for happened. And in a way where you probably didn't even know.
Okay, well, hold on, Ant. Hold on. Your article wasn't about fucking, like, Sun Spider. No, Ant, what you fucking want, and I know because I fucking read your article, what you fucking want is you want Peter Parker to be gay or bi or whatever. That is what you want. You don't fucking want a solo Spider-Man film about Sun Spider to, like, be there for the gay Spider-Man film, because let's be real, you don't give a fuck about Sun Spider. I don't. None of the other boys don't. No one else in the world does. You want Peter Parker to be gay. Because even you know that Peter Parker is the only Spider-Man that matters. And you know that if they were
canceled.
And you know that if they were to legit make a Sun Spider film, fucking no one would show up to it. Not even you. Okay, so come off this bullshit.
Well, this reminds me a lot of the. So, is anyone here familiar with Warhammer 40,000?
Yes.
I mean, I am kind of familiar with it. Like,
you're familiar. I assume you're aware of the Astartes thing with like they're all boys, right?
Yes.
Oh,
and then
the whole controversy. I think that and
I just mean like with reference to that and like the fact that people aren't willing to acknowledge that there is a literal all-female faction in the Imperium.
Oh yeah, that is so.
That aren't Space Marines. But, yeah,
so dumb. Like,
actually, that's correct. I was thinking of the more common one, like Sisters of Battle, right? But like, there are two, and it's like it's a case of, where's the push for the male Sisters of Battle? That's all I'm saying.
Where are the Brothers of Battle? Where are the Misters of Battle?
And it's like, we need female custodians, like, bro, you already have powerful female characters. They're right there. Why don't you just use those? Like,
and I feel like there is a non-insignificant kernel of truth in what you said, Backseat, where it's like a case of people feel that no one would give a shit about the Sisters of Battle if you showed them more prominently. Well, that's absolutely not the case. Like, Sisters of Battle are a very popular faction.
Right. Right, Jan, I get that, and the Sisters of Battle, they're good, but my point is that Sun Spider is just too obscure of a character.
No, I agree. No. I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying that like the problem is people like Ant don't have they don't have any faith in these characters that aren't explicitly the main thing. Like, yeah, are Sisters of Battle going to be as like fucking iconic as like the Ultramarines? Of course not. But you could still make cool stuff with them. Hey, you could make similar with here. Is Sunspire, whatever the fuck her name is, going to be as popular as like Peter Parker? Of course not. But you can still make stuff with her, right? And I mean, who knows? Like, I bet if you asked, like, back in the olden days, if you asked someone like, oh, who is going to be more iconic, like Jay Garrick or Barry Allen, they might have a different perspective. You don't know ultimately, but like, don't change the core thing. Make new things. Create. Don't
the
alter.
problem is these people aren't interested in like new things. They're only interested in what's popular. They don't want a new female character. They want a popular female character. That's why they keep doing it to popular modern characters. That's why they try to push characters like Captain Marvel, characters like Rey, because they want them to be popular.
I didn't bring it up earlier, even though I wanted to, but I might as well whip it out now. But yeah, it's like if they were to make Sunspider like her own character, like completely separate from the Spider-Man branding, no one would give a fuck about her because no one would give a fuck about her from like a marketing standpoint at all. And
Not inherently.
Okay, well, all right, well, and two is because because a lot of people just aren't interested in doing that because they know that if they were to put them out there, then they'd have to compete with all the other popular characters, and they just don't want to freaking do that because that's too much of a financial risk, and let's be real here, they're not creative enough to do it anyway. They're just fucking lazy like that. So it's just easier to slap the Spider-Man brand on her and just hope that just sheer name recognition will attract people to her and hopefully not think she's fucking retarded. So that's
pretty much. The expression would be having your cake and eating it too. They want all the benefits of the brand recognition, and they don't want to do any of the actual work associated with the brand recognition. And vice versa, incidentally. They want all the benefits of being like, as you put it, checking all the boxes, but also not having to do any of the actual work in, making a character that checks all those boxes and still is functional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the issue.
And as Spider-Man, you probably don't know about any of these characters.
Probably, yeah.
So it begs the question why people thought I was being so unreasonable for making this statement when it's happened and you don't even notice.
Peter Parker isn't gay. There's 60 plus years of comics proving this. Stop ruining characters by playing politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Multiple videos.
Stop ruining.
So again, yeah, I don't know who I highlighted, but absolutely spot on. He is doubling back on what he said originally because he specifically asked for a gay Peter Parker, not a gay Spider-Man.
Yeah,
he's a very, 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 very different thing.
If we ever make an Ant bingo card, we need to add he's backpedaling because that's becoming a lot more common in his videos. That he backpedals a lot more now.
Well, yeah, he's trying to reframe this completely, where it's like these two statements are not the same. You can't pretend they are. And if it's like a case of, we all understand Peter Parker to be Spider-Man, it's like, well, yeah, no, we understand to be Peter Parker, the character, Spider-Man. But these are not. It's not equivalent.
In characters by playing politics.
Multiple videos, Reddit threads, one after the other, going on about how somehow this was the worst idea in the world.
Go back. I want to read those.
Spider-Man, hang on about how somehow.
They're too blurry. I can't read them. My bad.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
Yeah. Wrong, but isn't some guy also bisexual?
Yes, he is. Yes.
But it's again, this is everything you're about to say literally doesn't matter, Ant, because the reason people are were acting like you're crazy is because you said that the mainline Spider-Man, who has had a plurality of strictly female love interests who are pretty essential to his character, or at least his character's journey, ought to be, could be queer or gay or whatever. That's why people are upset. Not if your statement was, "Hey guys, we could have a gay Spider-Man," I think less people would be, outraged about that, unless you specifically said it has to be Peter Parker.
the worst idea in the world. Spider-Man has always been straight. Spider-Man has always been a man. Spider-Man has always been white.
You said, quote, beyond homophobia, is there any good reason why Spider-Man can't be any sexual orientation other than straight? Yes, because he's got over 60 years of history banging women.
So, when we break away from that, why doesn't the world end? Well, simply put, anyone can be under the mask. The problem with bisexual...
Oh my god, and you are not understanding that shit. My god.
I'm not understanding him. What is he saying?
He's all right. So he's basically saying that because it's relating to we talked about this before you showed up, Jam, but it's basically relating to the fact that because Spider-Man's entire costume covers him head to toe, then it's like it makes people a lot easier to relate to him, basically. So it can be anyone under the mask. It doesn't really matter if he's white, black, gay, etc., etc., etc. So he's basically saying that because Peter is supposed to be this everyman character that everyone can relate to, why don't we just mold his personality, or in this case, his race and sexuality, into whatever the writer feels like that week? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get that. Okay. So is he suggesting that like Peter Parker, the character, shouldn't have like an assortment of characteristics?
He's basically saying that Peter Parker shouldn't have a concrete list of immutable characteristics like his sexuality, his race, whatever. That's basically what he's getting at. All right, bye, John.
I don't. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know, like how you even, because at that point it's not a character, right? It's like a blank slate amalgamation of traits almost.
Yeah.
Less than a character. Yeah, that's okay.
Why doesn't the world end? Well, simply put, anyone can be under the mask.
Okay,
the problem with bisexuality as a perceived...
What you are not fucking getting here is that we're talking about a super specific character here. Now, loathed it as much as I absolutely loathe it at this point. Spider-Man is a mantle, even though I really wish it wasn't, but whatever. Spider-Man is a mantle that, yes, can be passed around by multiple people, and yes, anyone could theoretically be under there, but we are talking about a very specific character who has been specifically portrayed as one thing for over 60 years. And you don't just change shit like that without fucking backlash, you dumbass.
Idea, the word specifically, is that people seem to believe that a person coming out as bisexual is in some way negating everything that came before.
Yes.
You try to weasel around this by saying some gay people come out later in life, but you've got a problem. There's this comic book convention that lets us know the inner secrets of a character's mind called thought balloons and captions. And for 6 decades, hundreds of writers wrote Peter as attracted to men, but conveniently left it out of literally hundreds of thousands of his inner monologues. All of them. That makes no sense.
How can Spider-Man be bisexual if he's never thought about wanting a guy before? When discussions like this come up, there are often two responses. People either go back and look for potential queerness as evidence, or present the following fact, which I will do right now, and then
is a fact.
First thing.
Following fact? Which fact?
Also, I find it ironic that his first example of refuting evidence comes from a bisexual man like him.
Yes.
Out of all the people you could have picked, you picked one that actually is bisexual.
Yes. Yeah.
Mentioned. A queer person can be queer even if they don't realize it. Yes, you have thought bubbles, but if you're not aware of your thought processes...
Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay.
Here's the difference, though, Ant. Here's the difference, though. Here's the difference. When he's not technically wrong, here's the thing. Real people, and you're applying real-world logic to a fictional character. Here's the thing. A real person has inner thoughts and feelings that, that most people don't realize. I don't know... there are things that there are things about you guys that I don't know about you, and saying to me. A character, on the other hand, a fictional character is not that. A fictional character does not have an identity outside of whatever the writers think of him. Like there's a lot of like a lot of meta fiction, in fact, is based on the idea that characters have no real identity beyond what the writers make for them. So while logic is true when it comes to human, it isn't really true with the character, because unless the comic, well, unless in this case we're talking about comics, so unless the comic specifies that Peter or whoever is queer or has queer thoughts, then he just isn't. Like the idea of like that they could be queer without realizing it, unless that's specified to us, then that just isn't really the case.
Just acknowledge as well the beauty of the fact that we are at the point in rationalization that simply saying that it's basically just because something wasn't made completely 100% explicit, it doesn't mean that, you know, it means therefore the door is open to it. It's like this is why you guys are shit. I'm sorry. Like it's like there's, of course, it's like, this is like basic 101 human communication. If there's a character who has an extensive history of having exclusively female love interests, and because this is like, Ant is begging the question, why do people find this jarring? Why do you find it jarring that he has this character who has an extensive history of strictly female love interests, who's never brought up this notion once, and who has never explored these themes? Why would you possibly find it jarring when we suddenly insert them in? It's like, because it's obviously fucking jarring, you idiot. Like, what do you mean? It's like, like, imagine that you have a guy, here, put it very simply. Imagine that you have a person, all right? And you see this guy every day on your way to work, and he always gets like a vanilla ice cream cone on the way to work, right? He always does this. All right, every single day. And then after 30 years of doing this, you guys are sitting down and he's like, man, I fucking hate vanilla ice cream. It's like, what the fuck do you mean? And it's like, oh, I could have just done it for... And it's like, what do you mean? Why are you surprised by it? I could do it for a number of reasons. I was doing this whole time to remind myself how much I hate it every single morning, right? Just so I keep the hatred fresh in my heart. And I'd be like, what the fuck? Isn't there a way simpler explanation on the table here that this guy just likes vanilla ice cream?
Yes.
It's like, no. But it's like, no. And that's your problem, or like that's Ant's side's problem. Like, they don't understand appropriateness of, like, in terms of continuity. Like, there's some things that are just not appropriate in terms of, not talking like morally here, because I don't have any problem with homosexuality, obviously.
Well, that's because Ant's side, in the words of Simon Davies, or Simon Rabies rather, canon is whatever you want it to be. It's like, no, it isn't, my guy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a case of, of course this is jarring to people. Like, how would you? And like, he'll say, "Oh, it's because of homophobia." It's like, can it just fucking be that they find it strange that this is now different when they had a complete, like, again, you gave them a completely different understanding, and now you're just saying, "Oh, it's this, by the way." It's like, that's shocking, at least, right? We can agree on that. It's such a. This is what annoys me. It's like, and of course it has to be homophobia, right? It can't be anything else. Like, it couldn't possibly be anything else.
Yes.
It's such a.
It's the same thing with the recent Yasuke controversy, because again, there's like a lot of like layers to it. Like people wanted, like a Japanese, main character in feudal Japan. There are people like, Shohei Kondo, who are, like actual Japanese people that are kind of discussing why they think it's disrespectful, but all the Ubisoft shills want to just simplify it to you just don't like that a black main character is in the game. And it's like, no, the discussion is far more complicated and nuanced to that. Like, are there people who dislike Yasuke because they're racist? Yeah, but like that, like
we were samurais and shit.
It's like, yeah, there's more to it than that. There's more of a nuanced discussion than Grr, how dare you put a black main character in my Assassin's Creed game? There's more nuance to that, but
Meanwhile,
they either
Adewale
they
exists.
just aren't interested in engaging with that nuance because all they want to do is virtue signal and just be like a basic good guy, bad guy thing, bad guy thing, when it's just so much more complicated than that.
Here's a very simple tool for this in future, and if you ever, because clearly this is something that has sat on your mind, so I can assuage your concerns right now and provide you a very simple device to avoid this confusion in future. If you ever find yourself posing yourself the question of why does trait Y on character X inspire confusion, imagine that you're in a room with a person who knows nothing about this character and you're describing things to him, right? So like let's use our Assassin's Creed example, right? And you're like, oh, it's a stealth game, okay, set in feudal Japan, okay, and the objectives are to kind of explore certain parts of Japanese history and culture, okay, in this specific period at this specific time, this specific place, using these specific tools. Okay, yeah, that all follows to me. So, and if in that person's mind, do you suppose that when you tell them, oh, and you can play as a black samurai, they're going to be like, wait, what? It's like,
it just sounds completely.
Yeah, it's like they obviously had a picture. Like, this is the thing, what I mean, where like the left is really bad at understanding people's intuitions and or even thinking that they're reasonable for having them, right? Like, people intuitively have an understanding of information based on their own experience, and for the majority of people, their experience is going to be like, you could say limited. I would just say it's going to be specific to the type of place where they were raised, grew up, that sort of thing, and to also our collective knowledge as a species, right? And we as a collective species have an understanding that Japan tends to have Japanese people. So most people are going to expect when a game's set in Japan that it's going to be a fucking Japanese person. Much the same way, people, if you describe that one fucking, I always like to reference it, that one like Genghis Khan movie where fucking John Wayne was Genghis Khan.
Oh yeah, the Conqueror.
Yeah, people would be like, wait, what? Why is fucking John Wayne here? It seems jarring because people have an intuitive understanding of the world that we just we just understand this to be true, right? Because we all live in reality. But Ant seems to really struggle with why, after he, again, you describe Spider-Man's entire history to someone and they say, oh, and he's bisexual, people find it jarring. Huh. Strange. Really? You expected him to not be bisexual?
Curious, yeah.
Curious, yeah, exactly. Like, what?
Then you're not going to consciously think about, oh, I'm so bisexual, I'm so closeted. No, you're going to think, oh, okay, that's interesting. You may feel feelings that don't make sense to you, that push you to act in a certain way, despite the fact you don't understand why you're acting that way. Some people are so deeply repressed, they overlook signs of queer identity until later on in life. Even their 20s, their 30s, hell, even later. I think it's interesting how people reacted this way when Iceman came out, that he had repressed his sexuality so deeply
and
that it took bringing a child version.
Pause, Jan. We talked about this before you got here, but again, this is another fucking retcon right here, my guy. Oh my god.
Yeah, again, it's like, again, Ant, sure, that's all great, man. I hasten to remind you, your point of confusion here seems to be, why would people be surprised by this? It's obviously because they had a different understanding and interpretation of the character's identity to you, probably colored by the fact that, and listen, as a proud member of the alphabet community myself, all right, I hate to inform you of this, but most people aren't part of that community. They don't have that lived experience. They derive it from something else. Like they have a completely different lived experience to you. And it's a case of, so now that we have this realization, there's two ways. You can go about kind of introducing your own lived experience in a positive way, and you can go about it in a I guess you can go about it in a positive way, a lazy way, or like a negative way, right? Now, our criticism is that this right here, this is the lazy way, which is, it's not as bad as like fucking being like a terrorist, I guess, but it's pretty fucking annoying, right? So like, how about we do it the best way possible, which is be reasonable, write good characters that and good stories that convey our lived experience. How about that?
And preferably with your own characters and not co-opting someone else.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, isn't it? This is kind of the point I made when we, like, I think it was when we talked with Noah the other day. But it's like, isn't it way more insulting to just be like, the best that we can get is, oh, maybe we make this character gay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and yeah, it's like it's annoying, but
bi.
these people don't want to, like, these people just don't want to. They just want to do the bare minimum. They don't want to, like, they don't want to fight for more. They're just like, oh well, it's better than nothing, because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to do like anything. They just want to be like, oh, they just want to, like, they don't want to go out of their way to search for original characters. They just want to just wait until the corporate overlords just might hand them might hand them a scrap of representation because they're lazy cowards.
Like, if you want and here again, I'll give you a free recommendation right now. Age of Madness trilogy, Joe Abercrombie. There's an entire main character who has pretty strong obviously he has other things as well, but one of the parts of his thematic things for his journey is him kind of wanting to repress the fact that he does have indeed gay thoughts, as they say. Like, it's a pretty central part of what drives him and what ends up landing him into making some pretty fucking horrible choices. Like, we can read that. You can read that trilogy right now. It's in audiobook format. It's on YouTube. The author's based. He doesn't take them down. All right, takes you about 30 hours. It's great.
I mean, yeah, I just feel like it's just sad because it's like again, these people claim they want representation, but they'll only get representation from like mainstream society. It's like society, like they won't go look for like independent stuff. They won't do that because it's like, because all they want is for it to be popular. They don't care if it's good. It's just it's sad because there's more
on some level. On some level, and again, I mean, this is like maybe my experience, but like on some of it, I kind of get it, because like the idea is like, man, why are all of these like mainstream characters a particular way that has a is testament of a lived worldview that I'm not 100% identified with? Which, okay, yeah, that can sting, but like at that point, the best that you can do is to support creations that do convey that worldview if they're good, if and indeed you think they're good and worthy of support. And also just come to terms with the fact that, hey, this is a new thing, all right? It takes time. It always does. I'm sorry. Like, it can take fucking hundreds of years. Sometimes, obviously sometimes quicker than that. But like, it's just not reasonable to, in a world where the majority of a population has a different lived experience from you, to expect most mainstream characters to be 100% like you. It's just not reasonable.
And again, I'll say it again. I said it back in the original like bad gay rep video. But if you want that stuff, you gotta be prepared to go into the ghetto because it ain't coming out.
I mean, yeah, the thing is, like, there are so many like movies out there that, I mean, for me, it's like I tend to like go out of my way to like look for like obscure stuff. Unfortunately, like, there aren't a lot of movies made for people like me that like crazy, weird, like comedies, anymore. But like, so that's, I kind of go out of my way. I mean, I mostly go to old movies, but at the same time, I try to look for stuff. I pay attention to, like, I look at Alamo Drafthouse to see if there's anything like niche. I try to go on YouTube to see if there's anything. If a new film, like sometimes if a new film pops up on my recommended that I've never heard of before, then I'll be like, oh, YouTube heard of? That's how I found Frankie Frico. I kind of look for that. It's like, the thing is, it's just, there is good media out there for everyone. It's just sometimes it's harder to find under, like, if you take the time to look under the mountainous, gelatinous slop of generic blockbusters and Oscar bait trash and depressing horror movies, there's stuff in there that fits my niche, and that's the same with everyone. The problem is with Ant and people like him, they don't want to go into the depths and look for it. They just want to be handed to them on a silver platter, and unfortunately that's just not how it works.
It also speaks to one more thing, and again, like this is just listen, Ant, one half gay to another. All right, I feel that you're making your identity way too much part of your sexuality, way too much a part of your identity. If it bothers you to seemingly this degree that you spend multiple years ruminating upon this question. Like there's way more to like. Again, I understand the whole. There's a different lived experience that comes with having asexuality. Of course, there is, but there's also a bunch of different other factors that you can appreciate in characters. Like, yeah, sure, I really like Superman. Superman isn't gay. He's not bi. He's none of those things. But I appreciate that he has a similar sentiment to me when it comes to ideals such as justice, for example. Right?
Mm-hmm. Same with me. Oh.
Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
Same with me. Marcy Wu from Amphibia is one of my favorite characters, even though we don't share anything commonality. Like, we're different ages, we're different heights, we're different races, all that. But I still relate to her because, I relate to her personality and her desires, and I see a bit of myself in her as a character, and that makes me like her and connect with her. Even though we don't really share any, and makes me able to look past our superficial differences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah.
Oh.
Version of him back from the past, and kind of forcing him to come to his own senses about his sexuality, before the adult version of Iceman also came to realize or admit publicly his feelings. But that's suppression. That's not quite the same thing as repression. Suppression means you're aware of it and you kind of bottle it inside. You're so deep in the closet you don't even admit to yourself about it. You try to force yourself to be straight. Whereas repression sometimes means you're not even aware of it because you're not registering the feelings that you feel as what they are. That's a real thing, a common thing with a lot of queer people who grow up, especially those who grew up in conservative households. And while I'm not saying that Spider-Man is necessarily a conservative character, his aunt and uncle aren't exactly on the front lines of, women's liberation marches back in the, well, maybe Aunt May was, but I digress. So,
what?
Peter...
Oh, God.
What does that have to do with anything?
Wait. So does conservative now simply mean not hyper-progressive?
Oh, my God.
Oh, God, they gave me flash. Oh, my God, they gave me... Oh, God, when he mentioned young Aunt May, they gave me flashbacks to Trouble.
Ah!
Yeah, it's like, what is this... Again, what is this framing? It's like, the conservative
I have
household.
no idea what this shit he's on is.
Again, it feels like Ant's going into one of his trademark irrelevant tangents.
Yes.
There was a Family Guy cutaway gag that showed Iceman being gay, and it was kind of funny.
Yeah, but he's like talking about in conservative households, and Peter is basically could be repressed because his household is conservative by virtue of his parents, his foster parents rather, almost not being hyper progressive. What?
Which that's not really. Which again, it's like not again.
That's
it's
not most people, my guy.
I'm saying this. I don't personally know. And again, I don't personally know any conservatives, so I'm not saying this from experience. But I'm pretty sure not every conservative is an ultra hard, super MAGA, racist, sexist, homophobic, bigot.
No.
I mean, Shady Durags is a conservative, and he honestly seems pretty chill.
Yeah.
Well, it's also just a case of most. This is a thing with conservatives. It's yeah, sure. Sometimes this is going hyper into a different, almost an entirely different conversation. The topic of this video, but he opened the door to it. It's most conservative parents are super attached to their family and their children to the point that they might quibble with the identity, right? They might be okay, this is going to make things difficult for you. They might even view it as a choice, right? Sort of thing that they're making, but they will still love their kids. That's it's a, and this is, listen, most parents, again, there are horrible parents out there, of course, but most parents do grow to the stage of understanding that your child must live their own life, right? They must make their own decisions. Not to suggest that like I think being gay is a choice or anything, but it's like that's an entirely different fucking debate that I don't want to get into. But like the idea of like, you know, the conservative household will like try to mold you to be a certain way. It's like, yeah, every household is going to do that one way or another, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's because parents have an idea of who they want their kids to be, and they want to guide them to what they think is their best life choice. Again, generally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's never, and like I know like. I know people who have like had experience with their parents and like their own sexual identities. It's like you always have to come to it. I feel if you're gonna actually try to find a middle ground and work with your parents and maintain a good relationship with your parents, which most people want to do, is just try to understand they're not trying to hurt you generally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they are doing what they think is in your best interest. Obviously. Not all parents, right? But most parents, right?
Yeah.
So,
like overwhelming majority, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like, yeah, this is just a weird. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
I have no idea what he's on.
Peter Parker's had some very close male friendships. He spends more time around Harry Osborn in the Raimi films than his love interest Mary Jane. The relationship between Johnny Storm and Peter in the comics is that of vitriolic best buddies, but some fans have read a little more into that. We'll get to that in a second.
Those fans are wrong.
And then, of course, there's that one time that...
Again, like, why do we... Because I already know this is going to be like a section here, isn't it? Or whatever, but, like, why is that a... Why do we care about what fans have read into? Again, fans can have whatever takeaway they want, right? They can be, and the takeaway could be wrong, but it could be meaningful to them. I don't give a shit about that personal extrapolation. I care about what's actually in the work, and like, such a weird.
At Peter Parker and Eddie Brock
angle.
Stripped their shirts off to seduce the Venom symbiote. This is the thing that happened. We'll also get to that later.
What?
Just put that in your memory hole for now for a bit. We'll get back to it. But first, Johnny Storm. Let's look at that for a second. Let's look at when they first met. In Amazing Spider-Man #1, the first issue of Spider-Man's ongoing solo series, they hit it off as rivals initially. They don't see eye to eye at all. In fact, they can't stand each other. But over those first few dozen issues, things change. It's thanks to the Human Torch, for example, that Spider-Man gains the confidence to fight Doc Ock after their first encounter, where Spidey loses.
This is correct.
To say that they never give up.
Okay.
They always keep fighting. That inspires Spidey, inspires him to grow, inspires him to overcome this major obstacle in his way. Johnny and Peter have this special spot over by the Statue of Liberty where they'll hang out, chat, talk, tease each other. Oh, and during the Hickman Fantastic Four run, they become roommates.
Oh my god,
wow,
roommates.
And then he's there to support Franklin Richards when Johnny dies for a bit. They're extremely close. And keep in mind, at the beginning of the comics, Johnny was the closest thing that Peter could call a friend. Or
yeah, so that was gonna... You kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like, so friends, right, would be the thing that pops into the mind of most people immediately. And again, and like I appreciate you might have a different read on it given your own experience, but that's what the majority of people are going to think based on everything you've just described. Like, you're not convincing anyone with those citations of them potentially being gay, because they could simply be friends, and people are going to read into that based on their own experience, and the overwhelming majority is going to be they're just friends. That's just reality, my friend.
That's reality.
Have any real relationship with outside of his aunt and uncle, or his dead uncle, I should say. Like, don't forget, the only love interest at this time was Betty Brant, a character who he has no chemistry with, who rejects Spider-Man outright after a series of events, and quite frankly is so minor in the hierarchy of love interests that even when she was adapted in the Raimi film, they still didn't even entertain her as a possible love interest for Spider-Man.
Miss Brant! That's not the position I hired you for!
I think the only version of Spider-Man uses Betty Brant's love interest is the 60s cartoon, which is odd considering Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane were introduced before.
So, like, the whole they have no chemistry together, that's, like, subjective as fuck. And secondly, so there was a love interest.
They did have a bit early on, but then, of course, Betty Brant's brother died. That would cause a huge rift, and, and then just the little issues passed. They kind of softened Gwen's character because, like you said, Gwen was introduced. Gwen was originally introduced as like this massively catty bitch, but then of course, but I just amounted up to early installment weirdness because then after that, Stan and Jerry Conway softened her character up, and she became more like the nice gal we all know her to be. But there was a dynamic between her and Peter, but then, like Ant said, it fell off. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point as well. So there was already like they were already flirting with the idea of like there's definitively going to be a female love interest involved, right?
Yes.
So like that's if we're divining intent, right? That's more of an indicator than the alternative. Clearly.
Yeah.
Before the 60s cartoon came out, and while Mary Jane shows up, Gwen Stacy doesn't. I just think it's very interesting in hindsight. But ultimately, bisexuality as an identity is a little different than being gay or straight. It exists as a spectrum.
No shit.
No, you don't say.
Being gay or straight, that's wild.
Some people are more bi for men than they are for women, or they like same genders as opposed to different genders, etc., etc. It's very interesting how that works out. Now, let's talk about Deadpool for a second here as well.
Deadpool ain't bi.
What the fuck? Yeah, like what do we?
They made Deadpool quote unquote pansexual, but no, he isn't. Deadpool only has one love interest, and it's Lady Death. That's it.
Yeah, that's my understanding was as well that him because that's like where his thing with Thanos comes in. But
yes,
anyway.
Was presented as a very secretive assassin. The only person he had any feelings for was Vanessa Carlyle, aka the mutant copycat, or Vanessa from the Deadpool films, if you've only seen those. However, after that storyline ran its course, a lot of
I actually quite like her in the movies, but anyway,
people fell for Deadpool, and Deadpool fell for them. A couple examples right here. Domino, Carol Danvers, Rogue, Santana Hellstrom, the daughter of Satan himself, Big Bertha from the Great Lakes Avengers, the alien tow trucker Orska, yes, this is a thing, Hillary Clinton, yes.
What?
And Death, the
Hillary
very entity
Clinton, like Clinton's wife, Hillary Clinton? What?
Yes.
I was gonna say I thought we covered Hillary Clinton with Lady Death, but anyway.
Wait, I'm sorry. That was a canon thing. Was that like one of those like Was that like one of those?
This is like a complete like just this is the Ant classic. It's just like I'm gonna list all these different romances across all these different comics, but it's like no, bro, comics have a lot of this is. This is why canon is complicated for comic books. So yeah, there's one fucking more billion different authors and universes and iterations and things that fucking happen in comic books. Alright, it's wacky. Like but like there's still a in like the canon, as in like almost like the canon of that people understand a definitive love interest or like a definitive like archetypal understanding of who the character is. Right. Mm-hmm. This is. Which is why you'll note, like, those points that they had given Sony, right, almost, like, it was so broad, right? It was nothing, like, super plot-specific, but it was, like, these are just some essential characteristics, right?
Yeah.
So, like, yeah.
Thanos pines for. But he's also been attracted to Thor Odinson, Captain America, Wolverine, Colossus, and yes, most relevant to here, Spider-Man.
No.
On AO3, the most popular ship involving Wade Wilson is not Vanessa, it's not Carol Danvers, it's not Rogue, it's Peter.
This is irrelevant.
Wait, you're using a popular fan fiction website to prove that's just like so. Like, AO3 is a fan fiction website. You
fucking
can't
Christ.
Use content in order to prove canon. There's a reason that it's called fan fiction, Ant. What are you doing? Oh my god.
This is the most ridiculous evidence Ant has ever fucking presented. Holy hell.
I'm just fascinated.
Like, popular ship on AO3. Yeah, so what? People ship literally anyone with anyone. That's how fandoms work, and that's not evidence.
I was also gonna say, I was also going to say, and your sample size here is going to be primarily composed of people that actually write / are interested in fan fiction, right? So that already colors like your selection. Ask one random person on the street who the love interest of Wade Wilson is, and see if the answer is fucking ever Spider-Man. You might get one or two, right? But that's not going to be the prevailing answer. This is kind of. I wouldn't go so far as to call it dishonest, but it's like a case if you're not showing what you think you're showing. Really, you're showing that it's a popular ship amongst shippers. But like, what percentage of the fandom are shippers? Or what percentage of the population who have a passing interest in comics are shippers? Like, it's not useful information, really. Also, wow, Steve Rogers like Tony Stark is only 507. Damn, I expected that to be more. Wow.
I am never letting Anne live this down. Now here. Okay, let's keep going.
To Parker. And so, while we can't take AO3 as a greater representation of the whole fandom,
then why are
proves
you?
A lot of people think that Deadpool and Spider-Man make a good.
You argued that yourself.
Right?
What the hell?
Right?
A lot of listen to this. Listen to this sentence here. This is so amazing.
While we can't take AO3 as a greater representation of the whole fandom, that proves that a lot of people think that Deadpool and Spider-Man make a good couple.
That keyword being think.
Why? It's so much better. Like what he said here is, while we can't definitively use this to prove that this is what the majority of people think, a sizable amount of people think this. Wow, crazy, dude! That's great. You know what? This is the actually. Wait, let me go back to how many hits that had. So that's 8,000 people have written Peter Parker / Wade Wilson fanfiction. So I will be very charitable and say here that 1,000 times as many people have read that fanfiction themselves. So I would put you at 8 million people agree that Peter Parker and Wade Wilson make a good couple. That is a fucking negligible sample size in the grand scheme of things of people who are familiar with those characters. Is it a lot of people? A lot is a very non-specific fucking, word, really. Like, yeah, is it more than 7,000? Sure. Is that a lot in the context of these are very popular characters? Probably not. It's a pretty negligible amount of people, I'd say, generally.
Mm-hmm. It's Peter Parker. And so, while we can't take AO3 as a greater representation of the whole fandom, that proves that a lot of people think that Deadpool and Spider-Man make a good couple. Right? Well, are they gay for each other? Well, no, because neither Deadpool or Spider-Man are gay. First off, Deadpool is pansexual, which is...
what the fuck are we talking about?
Distinctly different from bisexuality.
Okay. Bisexuality it's pretty much the same thing. Let's be real here. It's practically the same thing.
I don't know all my expressions. Pan is the one where you're to everything, right? Like
you'll fuck everything. You'll fuck everything with a pulse and isn't bolted to the floor, pretty much. So in other words, you're bisexual because.
The plane fuckers. Wait. No, what about the plane fuckers? You're forgetting the plane fuckers that we talked about the other day. That pansexual, right?
Particular humans. Like, I think, non-living objects and animals, that's a whole other ballpark.
And dead people,
yeah. Oh my fucking god. There's too many. See, this is the thing, there's too many rules at this point. I don't even keep up with it.
Honestly, I honestly don't really, I pay attention to, but I don't really go into the other the whole, thing, because I honestly have other things I need to deal with.
Yeah.
Sexuality is attraction regardless of gender. These might seem very similar in nature, but these labels are very meaningful to the individuals who accept them. And the distinction between bisexuality and pansexuality are very similar, but not quite, being bi and pan, they're close, but not quite the same thing, and the differences are important to those individuals. Just respect that, Cool. The second thing is that many of Deadpool's crushes are one-sided. Almost all the names I mentioned before, they don't feel the same way about Deadpool the way Deadpool feels about them. And that includes Spider-Man, who is often put off by Deadpool's advances. So, Does that mean Spider-Man can't be bi? Well, no. It just means Spider-Man doesn't feel that way about Deadpool. Except for the fact that they grow old together and they have special relationships and they fill each other's roles as Deadpool puts it.
Why did you bring that up? It's like, oh, you went on this entire rant about Deadpool, and you're like, oh, Spider-Man doesn't feel the same way about him.
What the fuck are we
doesn't
talking
figure
about?
into your argument? What?
What are we talking about?
What even is the thesis of this video? Like, what even?
I have no idea.
The thesis is that Spider-Man legally cannot be gay and that it's gonna be bi and superheroes and bi erasure.
Okay, but he already proved that with the whole like paper from earlier. So like, what really else is he? Oh my god, my brain.
I don't fucking understand. Wait.
See, this is the problem when discussing any bi discourse, because with fictional characters, because people want to see bisexuality being performed for them at all angles.
And they wanted it good characters, and
you mean like 4K HD? You mean like 4K HD on Pornhub? Yeah, you can do that, dude. You can find it, but like, you know,
bi people work. A bi person won't just have a boyfriend and a girlfriend at the same time. I mean, they could, but that's not a requirement. Nor are they going to get flustered around every single person. I mean, I get flustered around everyone, but that's beside the point. That's not relevant. You know?
Like you get flustered when you decide to not fucking debate me like that, Ant?
Yeah, like when you responded to several other people, but like, yeah, it's like I know exactly how.
I like that he feels
this video just like he has literally every other video. It's like.
I like that he feels he needs to explain this.
Yep, basically Backseater's going to comment under the original video that you responded, and basically Ant's just going to be like, cool, I'm not going to watch it. And then some of his fans are going to chime in, and then it'll be a whole thing, and then the cycle itself.
I feel this is such a why you explain him why is he explaining this? It's like bi people aren't attracted to everyone all the time, always. It's like, yeah, dude, actually, a lot of correct me if I'm wrong, most straight people aren't just attracted to every woman they see on the street, right? It's like, that's not how that works at all, right? Like,
I'm a straight man, I've run into some butt ugly fucking bitches, man. Like, I would, like, no. I don't
like, just because you can be attracted to someone doesn't mean
you will be.
You are, yeah.
Have preferences, and some people may like one gender more than the other in that way, and that's fine. A character like Black Cat comes to mind.
Oh,
she is
hang on, Black Cat.
bi.
No, she isn't. She got retconned that way. No, she isn't. No. That's a lie.
Her bi-ness rarely ever comes into play. Very famously, she has a girlfriend in Insomniac Spider-Man 2.
That's wrong.
Look, kid.
Very famously?
Not that it's your business. My girlfriend's in Paris.
No, she isn't.
And I got her into trouble with some bad people.
No, you didn't.
And there's some intimacy in the comics.
Oh,
but
that's
it's
shit
sparing.
art right there.
Sure, she may flirt with Mary Jane a little bit by talking about how her butt fits into that suit, but
yeah, it's called teasing.
That's not really reflective of even explicit bi-ness. It kind of erases her identity because it never comes up. But then,
like you care about her identity. Again, let's be real here.
Does it need to come up? Bi erasure in fiction is a very complicated topic because bi people shouldn't have to perform for an audience. They shouldn't have to demonstrate how bisexual they are at every second. That doesn't make them any less valid as a bisexual. But at the same time, if you ignore in fiction their bi identity, what ends up happening is audiences forget that they're bi, which means they have to come out multiple times.
Well, no, she isn't. She just isn't, my guy.
I'm just gonna fucking say it. Like this is the first. I feel this is the first Ant video that has managed to defeat me in like the sense. In like the sense of I feel that we are too far deep, like the particular, like his team's particular understanding of the world for me to even follow what the fuck is being said. Like I genuinely I would like to think myself as a pretty reasonably intelligent person anyway, Like I am unable to understand what the fuck he's talking about at this point.
What I think he's trying to say is that if you're going to have a bisexual character, they need to date men and women in equal amounts, so that way they don't always seem like.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought he was saying. But then that is betrayed by him saying now that they shouldn't perform. When feel like they're performing for an audience, where how else can you possibly convey a fictional character than in the view of they're performing something for an audience of people that's going to be audience to their story?
I think this is Ant not suspending his disbelief enough. I don't know.
What is he's saying they shouldn't, the fictional character shouldn't be feeling like they're performing for an audience? Like, does he? I would really need a clarification on what he actually means by any of this. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. I'm sorry. I'm lost.
To the public. And case in point for that, fairly recently, as the recording of this video, is Kitty Pryde.
No, she isn't.
In Exceptional X-Men #1, Kitty Pryde came out as bi.
She isn't.
But it's kind of odd, because I recall Kitty Pryde coming out years earlier, back in Marauders #12. Which was 4 years before this coming out. Because, yeah, she did come out as bi then, and now she's coming out as bi again.
She wasn't
because
back
people
then, she
forgot.
ain't now.
Because it comes up so rarely in the comics explicitly that mainstream audiences forget. And so websites can make these big declarations like, oh, this character just came out. And people go, oh, I can't believe they made Kitty Pryde bisexual, even though Chris Claremont has clarified that when he was writing Excalibur, and all the X-Men comics he was writing, his end goal was always to get Kitty Pryde with Rachel Summers.
Okay, well, he didn't, so she isn't bi.
And the various X-Men comics where Kitty Pryde's either really close to Rachel Summers or Magic, Colossus' sister, who Kitty Pryde also had a relationship with Colossus, but that's neither here nor there. And this was reoccurring. Multiple writers continued this thread, but also multiple writers didn't pick up on this thread. You get the whiplash. Bi readers in one issue might pick up on Magic and Kitty on a bed together, kind of in a position where it looks like they were just cuddling. But then they'll get Kitty Pryde being resentful.
So I figured out at least why I'm confused. I just want to highlight how fucking far in this we are. We are at the point that we are hypothesizing a hypothetical group of hypothetical bi people and their hypothetical response to this specific panel. What the fuck are you talking about?
I don't even think he knows anymore.
How could you possibly expect to know how, who the fuck even are the bi people? Every bi person is a hive mind? But no, it's fine because you said they might respond this way. That's a fantastic escape hatch, isn't it? Anyone? Hey, here's a breaking news, and anyone might respond in any fucking number of ways to anything. What the fuck are you? Hey, in fact, straight people could have that thought.
Yeah.
What are we saying? I'm so confused.
Jan is losing his mind in real time.
I don't understand what he is fucking talking about. Why are we so preoccupied with what?
Oh my god, we're only 20 minutes in!
21, yeah.
We're so far afield in the theoretical at this point that can we tie this back to reality at one point and just acknowledge that all bi people perceive and interpret their media and their sexuality and the commentary upon thereof to be completely unique and different to the individuals largely? There's no homogeneous block of the bi people, right?
Yeah.
So why are we hypothesizing so much about them and thinking about what they might think about this? Have you spoken? Does Ant just have uploaded to his mind the collective knowledge and feelings and thoughts of every bi person on planet Earth?
Probably.
I hope not. Fucking hell, that'd be a gross invasion of privacy. But
as if Ant cares.
I'm so fucking gone. What are we talking about?
Full of all the women around her. So you get whiplash. What's going on here? It depends on the writer, ultimately. I
No,
also think
not
it's interesting
really.
how Kitty Pryde was played by Elliot Page
Ellen.
prior to him coming out as a trans man.
No,
It's
it was
interesting because
before
I feel
Ellen
like Kitty
came
Pryde
a
has always
man.
been associated with coming out as a trans man. It's interesting because I feel like Kitty Pryde has always been associated with queerness. Either
fuck off.
Is this Charlie Day in Always Sunny fucking showing me his corkboard of conspiracy theories? Like, oh, you don't get it. She was in a bed with her, and then you don't get it. She was played by a trans man before he came out as trans, and this particular thing, and it's all fucking. And that made me realize, like, this is all what we call this. It has all become clear as ice. This is a post hoc 100% him going about, like, with the benefit of hindsight being 2020 over all of these things, for his headcanon being like, oh, this person is bi, and then he's like, oh my god, look at all these indicators that were there all along.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, because you're going into this with the idea of confirming your bias. It's just confirmation bias.
Yes.
What the fuck? Why are you devoting 40 minutes to this?
Because it's an
directly
Ant
or indirectly.
video. He'll devote 40 minutes or an hour to literally anything.
Mhm.
Like, here's basically Ant's video. Ant's videos in a nutshell are basically just incredibly thin premises with limp evidence held together by loads and loads of padding.
Yes.
Oh my God.
that was in many ways repressed or private in some way. Now, with this greater context, of course, things come together. They make more sense, but...
Do they?
Really?
That's years and years.
Yeah, when
of
Ant says something makes sense, don't trust him on
No,
that.
no.
Makes sense, though.
Pressed queer identity in media. I feel one of the most overt examples of fans figuring out a character's sexuality years before they come out as bi, or maybe even the writers realize that they're bi, is Tim Drake's Robin.
What did he say?
I feel one of the most overt examples of fans figuring out a character's sexuality years before they come out as bi.
Figuring out how... There is no such... Figuring out a character's... Homeboy, there's no such thing.
Yes.
What do you mean figuring out their sexuality? Again, this is just, like, this is confirmation bias. You're like, oh, this writer decided to write a story with this person having this sexuality, and you're like, oh my god, the fucking signs were there all along. It's like, but they kind of really weren't. You're just going into it with, like, post hoc understanding of what was the this is like this is why it's very poor practice. It's like event X happened, and you're like, all right, let's go through all of history of event X, and you look at events or like instances in event X's history of like Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Alpha, Bravo, whatever. And you find that, oh, these might indicate why event X happened, but it could be totally fucking wrong. Like, I could, let's say that a volcano erupts on, or like, something erupts on Venus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I go through the history of, like, what happened in the lead up to that. I'm like, isn't that interesting? And, this volcano erupted on Earth here, and this volcano erupted on Earth here, and this volcano erupted on Earth here. And it was all these different separate, like, volcanic eruptions on Earth. And then there was this, like, flare that happened on Venus. Isn't that interesting? I'm sure I'm so smart. I'm sure these are all related, and this is why this happened. And it, like, paints a grand narrative of volcanic eruptions on Earth being, linked to eruptions on Venus. It's like, no, that makes no fucking sense.
Yes.
Correlation does not equal causation.
Yes.
Number one rule of anything. Like,
yes.
if you're like, and hey, man, if. You know the best part about all this, and hey man, if this like helps you feel like you understand these characters, great. That's great, buddy. But like, it's not actually rooted in anything substantive, right? Like, this is just your own personal feelings about these characters, kind of rambling for 40 minutes.
But then again, Ant's on the feels before reals side, so yeah.
Is he actually?
I'm pretty sure he is, yeah.
Yeah, that would not surprise me.
Bi, or maybe even the writers realize that they're bi, is Tim Drake's Robin.
They just suddenly went, oh, hey, Tim.
Oh, hey, it's Az! Yay, Az!
way Tim Drake came out as bi, I think is interesting.
What did he say?
Cock?
The way Tim Drake
Some cock?
Yeah.
came out as bi, I think is interesting. Robin
Oh, really?
has always been associated with queerness in camp
No!
since the beginning. I mean, since Seduction of the
Oh yeah,
Why?
that whole thing, that whole.
This is again,
Yeah, he was
has-
wrong.
well, no,
Oh yeah,
it's
that
like,
whole. I think I heard. Oh yeah, that whole. I think some. I don't know the whole details. I think I remember something about people making us think about Batman and Robin being gay, and I think
Mhm.
probably that book. I've heard. I don't remember the whole details, but I think I might have heard something about that.
he
Yeah.
has
I mean,
always been
even just-
associated with this thing. Who by? Like, hey, who has always associated him with this thing? Certain people? Yeah, well, again, certain people will associate anything with fucking anything, dude. There's people on this planet who associate the fact that they can't perceive, like, a horizon with the fact the Earth is flat.
And yeah, but Robin wears like really flashy, like outfits with leggings.
No,
so it has to be gay. Like, even though,
to
like,
be clear,
even-
yeah, I'm not trying to be deliberately difficult and suggest that I don't. I'm not saying I literally don't understand how people would come to make that association. I get why and how, right? But my point is the fact that it exists is not testament of anything beyond the fact that there are people who believe this. And like, why would that be meaningful? Like, you know what I mean? It's like just because people believe that something is the case doesn't inherently mean that it's worth interrogating or even true.
Yes.
Like it could be, and like as you pointed out, if, like the book is like, oh, Batman and Robin have like a sex thing going on, right? It's like, well, no, they don't though, and it's not in it's not been in any of the stories to support it.
Literally, the panel that made Frederick Wortham think that was in a book where Dick's bed got busted, and he had to sleep in Batman's bed. That's it.
Yeah. Also, isn't like how old was Dick in that comic book? Like
He was
10.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah, like I had to occasionally sleep in the bed with my parents and my sister. Like
Mhm.
like that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we're fucking having a sex thing going on,
Yeah.
right? Like.
I'm gonna reveal
Again.
something that's semi-embarrassing about myself. I used to sleep in my mother's bed until I was 12, so there's that.
I mean, I would do that when I was like, I would watch like creepypasta videos when I was like 8, 9, and I'd go sleep in my parents' bed because I was too freaked out to sleep alone. Like,
Oh,
it's shit
mommy,
fucking happens, man.
Slender Man's coming to
Yeah,
get
Slender
me.
Man, bro, he's gonna fucking come and rip my dick off, alright?
Yeah,
Like,
Slender- Yeah, and then Slenderman disappeared because of Slenderman is awful 2018 movie.
Yeah.
Based, hell yeah.
innocent. DC has been trying to make sure that you understand that Robin's not gay. Robin's really
'Cause
not
he ain't.
gay. He's
Yeah.
not going to turn the
'Cause
kids
he
gay
isn't.
like Seduction of the Innocent implied. They even gave Robin extra girlfriends just to make sure he wasn't gay.
Well,
It's for real. He's
no,
not
they didn't
gay.
give him
Even
extra
though-
I'm
girlfriends.
sorry. What? Wait. No. I'm sorry. Wait. Is Ant trying to imply that they gave Robin extra female love interests to show that he is not gay?
Yes.
Wow, even by Ant standards, that argument is insanely moronic.
Wasn't the implication always like, and this is pretty old? I felt ever since like Dick Grayson moved on to be like an adult and Nightwing, like it hasn't he's a womanizer been a pretty significant part of his like thing?
Something like that, yeah.
Again,
Like-
what is the thesis of this video? It's literally like, again, it's like half of this video is literally just, oh hey, look, this random DC character is gay or bisexual.
Yeah.
And your point?
I think
look,
it's
random DC character is bisexual. Like this video, okay? This video is like a broken pencil. It has no point. What's the point?
also
Why are you making
isn't it way more likely that like they had to so they wanted to have like distinctions between as there was more and more Robins, like right, they wanted to have more distinguishing characteristics between each of them because like what number 4, number 5 now, and it's like a case of okay, well,
yeah.
Yes, so like Tim Drake is like the more like analytic one.
He's the smart
Jason
one,
Todd
yeah.
was
Jason's
Jason
the
Todd was,
angry
like,
boy.
like the angry boy is the Raphael. Damien is like he's Batman's son. That's like
And he's
distinguishing
the
factor.
angrier boy, yes.
He's the angrier one, yeah. And then Dix was like he's the charismatic, charming, like pretty boy, right? That's like his thing.
Sort of. Dick Grayson is the heart of the DC universe, yes.
Yeah, like he's the goodest good guy, and he's like he's charming and suave, and he has the acrobatics thing down from the start.
And he's often
very
portrayed
fit,
as
that sort of
Batman,
thing.
and he's often portrayed as Batman's most successful protege, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's like the most well-adjusted of the lot, right?
Mhm,
Like
yes.
it's between him and Drake anyway. But
Yeah.
So yeah, like they made him again. Isn't it way more likely they were just like, oh shit, we want Dick to have a more defined personality now that he has his own thing. Okay, he's like the nice guy, charming, pretty man. That's his thing, right?
Yeah.
And then they moved on. It's not we need to erase the idea of him being bi. Like what the fuck?
Dick Grayson is the most bisexual coded straight man this side of
Wrong.
Bloodhaven. He's not gay. I promise. And Jason Todd, not gay either. But Tim Drake, even when they tried to make sure he was as straight as possible, kept coming across as bi, or at least queer in some way. Now, particularly a lot of fans read into his relationship with Connor.
It's like, oh, what?
The
This
two had a lot
character
of
has
chemistry
well,
while
no. See, that just means that he's even more gay because they're trying to overcompensate, and it's like, how do you function? Like,
And
all those R's in that head.
Iteration, they become more gay.
What's in there?
With each new upgrade, they become more gay. I just like this idea.
Fighting alongside.
And again, what does this all prove at the end of the day? Like, there's no real
It proves that Ant is way too accepting of retcons, for one.
That and
Yeah,
he is like in that, and he has way too much free time on his hands.
And probably something else on his hands, if you know what I'm saying.
No.
One another. While on the page is canonically friendship, some fans read into it a little further.
And those fans are stupid and wrong.
Some fans, again, what is this? Some fans. So some fans read into it. Again, our standard of evidence is some fans read into it differently.
And
everything.
And I don't give a damn what fans read into it. They all, because again, I'm going to assert myself in this. Again, I subscribe to the school of theory that there is only one way to interpret each and every character, one definitive way, right? All right, and I'm sorry, Ant, but Tim, Deadpool, fucking Kitty, Black Cat, Spidey, they're all straight, and if you don't like it, kick rocks.
I just and just so you're aware, some fans of World War II have read into it, and they do come away with the conclusion that Austrian Painter was the good guy. All right, so
yes.
Now what? Yeah. Like now what? Do we have to always care about what some fans say? Of course not. It's farcical.
I want to repeat, some fans, not all, read their interactions as possibly queer-coded.
Why are you?
With the context of Tim Drake coming out, however, those scenes play a little differently. They read differently with the added context.
Oh my god!
It was not intended that was going.
Guys, this is a revolutionary new idea.
Shit like this is exactly why I always tell people look at it objectively, because if you just fucking took the fucking rainbow lenses off your goggles off, then maybe you'll see it's nothing more than just two bros. And no, not the gay film.
I mean, interpretation is like the thing about interpretation is there's not again, a good comparison. Like, one of the reasons Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is so awesome is because there really is no objective canon. Like, the creators of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared themselves said that every fan theory is correct. Like, every fan theory is valid, but that's not every show. Not every show is Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, where it's like not every fan theory is valid and you can interpret it however you want. And even then, even in the show of World of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, the character red guy, there are red guy, yellow guy, and duck have a objective personalities. Like yellow guy is a child who's very naive. Red guy is more deadpan. Duck is like, angry and stuff. But it's like even in there they have like set characteristics that are like objective to that specific character. Whereas like with this, it's like Ant is like Ant's entire argument is, oh hey look, here's a random DC character, and it's basically it's either trying to get them to, his arguments in this video are either trying to get them to be gay or bi through some kind of 50 degrees of separation thing,
Yeah.
or using fan theories, which again don't count because they are the product of the fans, not the official companies. And it's melting my brain.
Or he's using evidence of like fucking comics made like after like wokeness became a fucking epidemic in the industry. So there's that too.
Yeah, pretty much.
I want to bring your attention to this revolutionary thought that he has here. Give me a second.
All right.
A moment.
It's going to be the end. They read differently with the added context. Scenes play a little differently. They read differently with the added context.
Oh my god.
Did you guys know that things can mean different things if future things explain them?
Wow. Fucking crazy, man.
Crazy. Yeah, it's wild. I'm glad that this is being time is being devoted to
Thanks
explain
for
this.
opening
Yeah,
our
and a
eyes,
40-minute video, it's like, gotta fill it with padding to get that runtime. Padding.
Also, he's already explained this with Kitty Pryde. He already explained with Kitty Pryde how things read differently after with new information.
So he's repeating himself then. Great.
Yeah.
It was not intended that was going to be the end game when those scenes were written, but it does impact how you reflect and revisit those scenes. Should you go back to those old comics?
Horribly.
And there are other scenes too.
It makes you go back and read them like, oh, this is where it heads. Oh, this is nowhere good.
Oh my god, Ant, you've done it. You've struck a gold. You've figured out where people's issue is. Because whilst you might have a look at that, all right, and be like, oh, that's so cool, man. This is like giving away that he might be bisexual, which like culminated in the future. Someone like Backseat might look at that and be like, wait, what the fuck? This was a completely different tone and structure. Like this doesn't.
It's like this. It's like this new story ruins the older story.
Yeah, like this completely changes this in a way that doesn't really make sense in continuity. So there you go. That's your issue. You figured it out. But so now can we apply that and please understand where people's frustrations come from? That it's because they feel that it is not in continuity with canon. That is the problem, not homophobia. Can we admit that, please?
Please? That thing feed into this. So
you're still trying to get Tim Drake over as bi, even though everyone knows he likes fish with his chips because we've read his thoughts for nearly 3 decades. And in the middle of doing this, you step on that story to have not Superman become a phallic unicorn too.
In Robin number 40, there's a scene where...
Also, why is he playing these Just Some Guy clips?
Because Just Some Guy basically argued against his entire CBR article, and he's salty about that.
Oh yeah, but it's like with this one, it's like with the Snow White video, when he played the clips, it was either to at least he was like somewhat responding or acknowledging it. With this one, he's just playing the clip at random parts without even really...
Well, he's kind of explaining it. Yeah, like he goes on to basically say, oh, this is like my evidence that some people think these horrible things, right? That's like his, like it's... Yeah.
He's dating a girl named Ariana at the time. It's like a love triangle between him and Stephanie Brown, who he would later go out with. And Ariana wants to take things to the bedroom, but Tim declines. He doesn't feel ready for intimacy.
Jan, pause. Hang on. I don't think I'm not pretty enough. That's not, you don't love me enough. I don't think I'm ready. We're not ready. I just wanted to make you happy. So right there, you just okay. So with the panel and what you just said, and that proves it. He thinks they're moving too fast. End of discussion.
Yeah, this is like the thing. It's like again, Ant does not really understand that there could be other reads of this scene beyond his personal extrapolation that it's because he's second guessing himself because he's bi or gay. It could be like, most people have had relationships where they felt like things were going a bit too quickly, or they didn't really know how they felt about the other person. Like, I've had experiences like that, but going both ways, to me and me towards them, right? Just, it happens. Like,
I sadly haven't.
There's some honest pain in Ariana's eyes when this happens. She's embarrassed, insecure in herself. Some readers who are queer might project some of their own life experience into this.
Okay, well,
where they might have been with someone of a orientation or sexuality or gender that they weren't attracted to, and they had to back away. A lot of readers responded very strongly to this scene for that reason. And though Tim Drake ends up being with Stephanie Brown instead of Ariana, the comics indicate he feels unfulfilled and depressed even. And this reads a little queer if you ask me too. Like, look, listen, it's not intentional. I'm sure
it's a shame that no one asked. I'm just kidding, I guess.
Yeah.
Some people probably have asked at some point, but like, okay, so like, I don't know. It's so difficult for me to appreciate what the like. This is why I kind of wish that Ant would actually come on and be willing to have a chat and like. It's kind of like Noah was, right? Because I genuinely would just like to figure out like what your objective is with these videos.
Yes.
Like I just kind of because in a totally non-malicious way, right? I just kind of want to know what you think your like what is the end goal? Is it just for you to have fun and get your thoughts out there? Because like
what's his end game?
But then surely you can't expect everyone to just agree with you, right? Because like what you're saying is pretty intuitively, you can pretty easily understand why people might be, might take umbrage with what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And like your supporting evidence often tends to be, this is my interpretation of the thing.
Yeah.
And like, why the fuck would anyone give a shit about your interpretation intrinsically when it's not, built on actual underlying evidence beyond very open to interpretation, shall we say, comic panels? Like, what is, besides, you're showing these things in extremely isolated context. Like, what are all, like, you would have to go over these comics very, very, in like a very detailed fashion to actually demonstrate anything about what they're telling you and like what the character's trajectory is, right? Like, this is almost, the video is almost too short for that, right? Like, you're not very good at streamlining this. I'm sorry.
No.
Like, yeah, it's which again, comics are a bad medium for this anyway, right? Just because of how many fucking like the body of work is just massive. But
yeah,
like, what are we trying to do here? And that's my question. Like genuinely, this is not, I'm not taking a dig at you. I like to do dunks. Hey, Noah said we should try to be a little nicer. I'm being nice right now. I would genuinely be curious what your reasoning is behind this video and like what the actual point is to you. Like, what makes it meaningful? I kind of would like to know.
They were doing something else with that, like trying to say, oh, maybe he'll end up with Ariana later on or whatever. But like, it reads as not straight, okay? And like, look at how Tim Drake talks to Connor Kent. All right,
yeah,
this is the kind of chemistry that you would expect in a romantic situation.
Oh my god, they're just fucking friends.
No.
Again, platonic relationships don't exist to people like Ant.
Yes.
Well, not if it can support his, like, they can exist between men and women. But like, yeah, it's.
even in terms of, obviously, the thing is, it's like, it's not really just in regards to gay people, it's in regards to relationships, like even in regards to, like, male-female relationships. It's just it's like people are so obsessed with shipping that they just forget that platonic relationships are a thing. It's on it. Yeah. Like, I don't mind shipping as a concept. Like, there are some ships I like, there's some ships I don't like, and the process of shipping, it's not my thing, but I get it. But it's like, but I get it. I get why people like shipping. I get why shipping culture is a thing. And I do watch some, like, shipping. Like, there's a YouTuber I watch called Caitlin McKillop, and she makes some pretty solid, like, videos on Disney Channel original series ships, which are pretty good. But it's annoying to see these people just pretend that platonic relationships don't exist. Like, hell, just chill.
Mhm.
Just chill.
Yeah, I don't really. Again, this is just such a. This feels like such a just. Hey, here's all these panels. Here's what I think they mean and how they support my belief that these characters are / always were gay, which is like. There's nothing wrong with that in principle, but you're not doing a thorough explanation of how this is communicated beyond this very easily hand-wavable away things of like they could be friends, and you're like, oh, well, they could be more than that as well. And then of course you have like the post hoc again benefit of the doubt on your end that like they later canonized it, right? But like again, you're going backwards and looking at events that to you confirm why what happened now is legitimate, when that could completely be not the case with context of those particular stories, right? Like, and then you're surprised when people find that jarring. Like, what you're essentially saying is you're trying to find evidence for people to be like, no, you guys should find this believable because look at this. He had a conversation with Connor Kent, that to me reads as gay. But what if the person just say, yeah, it doesn't read it gay? What if the person just says, yeah, it doesn't read as gay to me? What then? What is the next line of argumentation? You're done, right? Like,
yeah.
The game's up. You can't really do anything else with that. Unless you have like very strong underlying supporting evidence suggesting that he had. At that point, it'd be just like, okay, let's agree to disagree. Like, this doesn't bother me; it bothers you. Which, yeah, we can do that, but you're trying to gun for something far more definitive, and like your reach exceeds your grasp, man. I don't know what to tell you.
With his teammate and not his supposed girlfriends. Now, the real betrayal, in my opinion, was that Tim ends up with Bernard and not Connor.
Well,
who
Connor
the fuck is
gay.
Bernard? Now,
Good
the Wayne
question.
Family Adventures on Webtoons does
It's a very good question, actually. Who the fuck is Bernard?
His fucking boyfriend. And also, let's be real here. They didn't make Tim bi. They made him gay. They had him break up with Stephanie so he could dump him for Bernard, a character who just showed up more or less out of nowhere, pretty much for this express purpose. That ain't bi. That's gay.
Which I was gonna say, wouldn't that be way more evidence of this just being like a haphazard? This wasn't like decades in the making, because they didn't, like you said, they didn't even confirm what you and the fandom determined to be the logical ship. They fucking hooked him up with Bernard,
a character who debuted the exact same like year they decided to change Tim by. Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's what the fuck.
Or Tim Drake's relationship with Bernard better than the mainstream comics, I think. Because in the mainstream comics, Bernard is just Tim Drake's boyfriend. And they're cute, and they're happy. But there's not really an exploration of...
They're not happy. You're not allowed to... I just found that funny, I'm sorry.
The dynamics of the navigation of boundaries. Most stories where Bernard features, it's centered on Tim Drake, and Bernard's like an accessory to Tim Drake.
Yeah, it's almost as if Bernard's a love interest. Yeah, it's almost as if Bernard's a supporting character.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't that most love interests?
Yes.
Like, generally, at least on that, on the onset, right? Yeah.
Noteworthy stories about Bernard focuses on Tim Drake talking to Stephanie Brown, his ex-girlfriend, about him being bi. But Bernard barely features into the story, where Bernard's a central figure of it. Bernard's an accessory.
Okay, what would you even do with him though? Like, honestly, like
I thought this video was about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
What is the point of this?
The point is there is no point.
What are you trying to say?
It's just, I was gonna say again, like Bernard seems to be, in this way, like filling in the love interest role, like you said. Like the love interests tend to be, the point generally of a love interest is twofold. It's to have a a character who can have a conversation with the particular person that only like someone who is you're in love with could coax out of them to get specific scenes. That's point one. Point two is to have something that can add stakes to the story. Now, they can be their own character, of course. You can have stories focused on them. You can have individual things like it can be cool if you talk about their struggles and their personal lives a bit more. But I wouldn't expect to see that as like a priori a mainline staple, right? It could be like you do like one issue that's like from Mary Jane's perspective or something, so to speak, right? Where it's like, okay, that could be like a cool thing, right? But it's not. It ought not to be the norm that we have like extensive, massive amounts of time devoted to secondary characters in the character's like primary body of work, right? It'd be like this is why like when they made Robin, incidentally, Nightwing. That's why he got his own comic book line, right? Because it's like, okay, now this is where Nightwing does Nightwing things. But if Nightwing is in a Batman comic, he is a supporting secondary character. It's going to be focused on Bruce, right?
Yes.
It's like, so with Bernard here, why would you expect him to have like a deep introspective, like he needs to be more than just what he is, which is a love interest, right? Like, it's pretty, makes sense to me. Like. To say nothing of the fact, again, he's not an established character. He's a character who's developed purely to be a love interest, clearly, right? So there's not even anything else that they could possibly work with.
Always there for Tim Drake. He was always alongside him in some fashion, and there was some tension, and there was tragedy, and there was mourning, and there was desperation. Bernard's just kind of there, and there's not really much of a history. I know Bernard's an older character, sure, but there's not that same history he has with other people. Even the writing with Ariana feels more charged than with Bernard, and that's an ex-girlfriend who he did not sleep with. And look, it's not just me, okay? I'm not just the one saying Tim Drake.
No, you're not bringing up fan arguments
on
again.
AO3, which I repeat.
Oh my God,
is not
that's not a good freaking source.
Hold on, what?
AO3 is not a source for this kind of thing. Please stop!
AO3, which I repeat,
bringing up fan
again, is not reflective of the entire fandom.
If you know it's not reflective, why do you keep using it as a source?
No, he's
got this video out.
He's using it to say that it's popular. That's as far as his argument goes, which is like.
That it's in the comics.
Cool. Well, guess what? Spider-Man and Mary Jane's a popular ship. Are they together in the main comics? No. They're still divorced.
True.
Tim Drake and Connor Kent have
5,903
fics written about them. Now, granted, the most popular Batman ship is Dick Grayson and Jason Todd.
Hold on, stop. No. You see how it says Dick Grayson and Jason Todd as opposed to Dick Grayson / Jason Todd? That's because the and is for friendships.
Wait, is it actually?
Yes, really, that's how AO3 works.
Oh my fucking God.
So if anything, Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne is more popular than this. Oh my God, stupid ass idiot. Jan is literally losing his mind.
What the fuck? Okay.
The straightest of straight Robins at all. Why are you asking questions? Harley fans.
Hold on, wait, what was it Wally? What is Wally there?
What is this?
Why
that's Wally right there. What the hell?
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever.
No.
You're asking questions. Harley fans, her fics are elsewhere. But that's still more than most of the other Batman fan fictions on the site. In terms of shipping. The majority of these bisexual characters we see in certain trends.
Also,
right?
hang on,
either
Jan.
they come out as bisexual.
Harley is bisexual either. Anyway, moving on.
For a singular relationship, and it never comes up again. Or we see these characters enter into a relationship that seems to lack chemistry in it. With Tim Drake and Bernard, the dynamic is far less interesting in the mainstream comics because Bernard isn't allowed to be his own character. He's not allowed to have his wants and needs. He's an extension of Tim Drake's exploration.
Congratulations, you figured it out.
But not really his own character who has an arc alongside it.
Well, I mean, so number one, he could in future to start. Number two, like, yeah, that's, you know, you could say that about any character. They're just an extension of, like, in the Tim Drake centered comic book, like, you know, they could be, they're an extension of Tim Drake's story, right? Because they're furthering his story along, right? But
yeah,
it's such a, like, you know, this is what I mean, man. You have a love interest here who's a bi option for this character, who's treated no differently, like no better or no worse than literally 90% of love interests in fiction are, and it's still not good enough. It needs to be this specific guy, right? Otherwise, it's not good enough.
And again,
Like,
and it's like I don't remember if Ant made this argument, but we were watching this video about like arcs and shit. But it's like not every character needs an arc or needs to be round. Some characters just work better if they're flat or static. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, and in fact, love interests will often be that way because they're like, you know, particularly if it's like a case of, you know, the love interest is central to that character's identity, they tend to be like, it's like the rock that they can lean on, right?
Yes.
It's like that's the idea of like that. This is just a static good thing in their life that they can turn to, like in their time of trouble, right?
Mhm.
Same thing with friends, right? Like if you just have a best friend character, right? They tend to not be. They might not change very much. Sam doesn't change very much in terms of like as far as, you know, his relationship to Frodo is concerned over the course of Lord of the Rings, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like that relationship dynamic never really changes, like in a permanent sense, right? There's the ring fuckery that happens, of course, but it's not a, you know, he's a very static character as well in a sense,
Mhm.
but that's why he's there. He's the rock to lean on, right? Like
Yes.
that's the point.
And that's a failure of the comics, because every other one of Tim Drake's love interests, especially Stephanie Brown, were allowed to be their own characters. Even in the Wayne Family Adventures, which I celebrated before, Bernard's an accessory in that story too, because it focuses on Tim Drake's anxieties.
It's pretty much that's a panel right there. It's pretty much an official fan comic with DC's stamp of approval. It is shit.
I see.
Going to cool lesbian aunt Batwoman Kate Kane for advice. Even with Deadpool and Kitty Pryde, their same gender relationships are not given the same focus as their opposite gender ones are, especially among fans. Kitty has great chemistry with Magic and Rachel Summers, but there's never an official culmination with their relationships. It's always subtext.
Okay, well, because Kitty Pryde's main love interest is Colossus. You mentioned this earlier or brought it up earlier. I can't remember, but yeah, it's like that's pretty much why.
Yeah.
Men he's attracted to, but they're never treated as seriously in either the comics or among the fans and websites and listicles you always take a look at. I was doing a lot of reading on this list to make sure I figured out every one of Deadpool's people he's attracted to. I went down the list, and I found a bunch of websites where they ranked all of Deadpool's canonical love interests. This article right here I'm going to show you right now.
Oh wow, from CBR.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not incestuous at all.
Article had 20 women and 0 men. Unless you count death as a beyond gender entity, so in which case 19 women and death.
Her name is Lady Death.
It was updated with
it's kind of indicative.
The release of Deadpool and Wolverine. And even in the Deadpool films, Deadpool flirts with Colossus, he flirts with Wolverine quite a bit. The marketing
those are
for
jokes. This is a joke. These are jokes.
He fucks with Wolverine like more so, you know, like he's messing around with him.
Yes.
Wolverine. They used romance as a joke for Deadpool's relationship with Wolverine.
Yes, and jokes.
Several runners-up for the most homoerotic image involving Wolverine, though never beating this one. This still takes the cake.
That ain't
they said they didn't know what they were doing with this one, but they were cooking very well.
No.
I don't want to call out this article in particular. I don't want to attack the writer. I don't want to do any of that. Because it's not about them specifically. It's about the greater conversation of bi identity in media.
Sure, yeah.
I just kind of realized.
It's like I don't want to attack these. I don't want to attack these people that I hated working for. It's like okay.
Okay. This video actually kind of reminds me of something. So you know, I watch Jay Longbow a fair bit. She's fairly funny.
Mm-hmm.
She did one of she does streams like sometimes does like live response videos to things like She did it to this one video that I actually think the main guy. She did it to this one video about queer baiting, and I didn't watch the full stream, but I watched a lot of it. And the guy's basic arguments is just the guy who made the video's basic response is like, why isn't this like basically just like the same arguments, trying to use mental gymnastics to justify why these two characters who aren't actually gay are actually gay, and it just kind of gave me that. And it has the same energy as what Ant's doing here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
When Deadpool's,
I think the guy who made it actually, deleted the original video, probably because it was being ratioed by people who watched the Jay Longbone stream.
I'll be completely honest. I kind of just want to skip to this section. So what am I asking for?
Honestly, anything that gets the video over.
Jan, just put it on 1.5. Put it on 1.5. We can get through it faster.
Because what even is there left for him to say at this point? Like
we gotta power through
the
this.
fans and the websites and Marvel acknowledges it as a serious relationship. If he's attracted to a guy, it's a gag. Even Spider-Man, who he had an ongoing series with, where the whole thing was their chemistry, with several allusions being made to them filling each other's empty slots, building their characters up, showcasing that they are growing and maturing as a result of this relationship. Even that is still treated as a gag, even in the context of the writing. Even as we saw the very real impact of these.
Yeah, so perhaps it was supposed to be a gag, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, Deadpool is a pretty comedic character.
Yeah.
Spider-Man, on the list of people he wants to smash, websites do not acknowledge it as serious. And thus, because the conversations around the media don't take it seriously, people do not take it seriously. It is not canon, even though it basically is canonical attraction, because we are not discussing it as though it is. Spider-Man is allowed to inch up to the line with so many male characters. Johnny Storm, Harry Osborn, Deadpool. But they never say the words. They never say the words that there's some hint there. They don't pull a Kitty Pryde Magic or a Kitty Pryde Rachel Summers. They don't pull a Tim Drake and Connor Kent. It's just up to the line.
If Peter was meant to represent the underdog, maybe he should. Like, actually should. Wouldn't it be nice if LGBTQ plus people had a mainstream character to look up to? Marvel doesn't want it getting out there.
Wait, that's the guy. That's literally the guy.
No.
The guy that's I think that's the guy. I think that's the guy who made the queer baiting video that I literally was.
Oh my god, Small World.
Alexander, I think Alex. Wait, hold on.
Oh, this is.
Yeah, it's the same guy.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Holy shit!
Prized possession is secretly bisexual. Imagine all the angry dude bros who would complain about their interests not being catered to for once. Who cares anyway? Peter Parker's just a glorified furry.
And the same thing cannot be said with Venom.
You know, it would be nice just to have your support, just for once.
Venom is one of Spider-Man's most iconic adversaries, and arguably the only one who's successful had an independent trilogy of films. I say debatably because the films have a lot of problems, but I love them. I love them all.
The films are shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to declare they're really bad.
And you're a moron for liking them.
Like, that's not really saying much.
I'm finding people liking them because they can't. I see the appeal, but also they're really bad movies. Just to clear.
I mean, yeah.
Trilogy, they play
if he unironically likes them, he's an idiot. Also, again, it's for a gag. All right.
Yeah.
It's symbiosis, but it means there's a relationship dynamic. They get into arguments with each other. They're basically roommates, but closer.
No,
they're roommates.
No.
In other words, a married couple.
No.
Is he suggesting that Venom, like Eddie Brock, is attracted to the Venom symbiote?
Yes.
Which that would definitely constitute as some kind of
That would be absolutely disgusting.
What the fuck?
And the films are not subtle about this at all. Now, remember a while ago in this video, near the beginning in fact, I mentioned that Peter Parker and Eddie one time fought over the Venom symbiote by taking their clothes off and trying to seduce the symbiote. They were rolling nat 20s on the seduction. So I guess they turned into bards in that case. Well, the symbiote is an agent or alien.
Hey, fucking bard D&D seduction joke. I am in with the TTRPG crowd. I know my D&D terms. I'm funny.
Haha, here's my nerd cred.
Bro, I'm so fucking over that joke. It's like it's that and the Wizard Fireball joke. Fucking, they need to die, alright? We need to get some new humor.
Entity, who merges with its host. The symbiote and Eddie retain enough of their individuality to form a partnership, a union, one that doesn't involve eclipsing the other, as is the case with Carnage, where they both merge into one entity. Also, Venom has multiple children together with Eddie. Not just Carnage, Scream, and the rest, but also Dylan, who is essentially the child of Venom, Eddie, and Eddie's ex-wife, Anne Weying.
So he's Eddie's son with that lady, right?
Yes.
Like, it's not.
Yes.
How the fuck does the Venom symbiote factor into this?
I don't
became
know.
the host of the symbiote back in the 90s. The symbiote passed from Eddie into Anne, and when it went to Anne, it went everywhere, and baby. So yeah, merging with the symbiote can result in intercourse. So when Peter...
I'm pretty sure he was having intercourse with Anne, and the symbiote happened to be there at the time. Like,
yes. Yes.
Like, I don't... Yeah.
He tries to seduce the symbiote off of Eddie, and the symbiote is bound both to Eddie...
Also, just say sex. Why do people always, they're like, coitus, yes, or intercourse? They just say sex, dude, it's fine. It's, you know, you can say it normally.
And to Peter.
Like humans.
And they're both shirtless on a beach. I'm just saying. There's nothing heterosexual about it. But what does that have to do with bisexuality? Well, look, this just shows a willing intimate relationship with an alien entity. One that was neither male or female, strictly speaking. Forming a partnership. One that can be erotic in nature. The films and the comics recontextualize.
Symbiote. They are symbiotic.
Yes.
Also, I'm pretty sure the reason they were showing, like, I hazard a guess, the reason they're showing off their physiques in that panel is like, it's like a case of I am the better host because I have the better, like, physical fitness characteristics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's probably the idea.
Yeah.
The relationship between the symbiote and host as a union comparable to a romance, rather than a parasite who dresses as a costume. It's not some parasite, it's a lover. A lover without...
No. It's not a parasite. Different, again, I appreciate you're not a biologist, neither am I, but these are different terms. A parasite is something that takes away from you for its own benefit. A symbiote is something that creates a mutually beneficial relationship with the host organism.
Also, he called them a parasite and a lover, so, like, what does that mean? It's like,
well, no, he's like saying it's not a parasite, it's a lover. Where it's like, no, it's a fucking symbiote, mate. It's in the name. They have a symbiotic relationship.
Yes.
Like...
Gender. Sounds pretty queer to me. So, what am I saying Spider-Man should become? Should he be bi in the comics? Should he run around with a bisexual flag instead of wedding between his armpits?
Finally learning what he wants.
We're here, we're going to find it out.
I think that'd be very silly, personally. A version of the Spider-Man character who's not straight, we've gotten that. More would be nice, but hey, 2 out of the 9,000 that exist, that's cool, I guess. I mean, how many different versions of Spider-Man? Just a bunch of spiders dressed up as people. There's 1,000. There's Spiders, man. That's 2. So we get just as many versions of a queer Spider-Man as we get versions of a coalition of spiders dressed up as a Spider-Man. That's fair, right? That's how it should work? Well, no. What I'm saying is a little more nuanced, we'll say. Spider-Man should be allowed in media.
Oh, yeah. You totally know about nuance, Ann. Yeah.
Yeah.
More nuance, which probably means it's going to be overwrought and belabored, but yeah, anyway.
Yes.
To be not straight. Wolverine, for example, had that. Wolverine in one alternate continuity. He became the president of Canada.
So what do I want for Spider-Man? Anyway, Wolverine, what the fuck are we doing? Can we please stay on topic for 2 seconds?
Please.
It's just so confusing.
Look at what you're doing to this man, Ant!
And I just want to know what you want, dude. That's all I want to know. I'm so fucking curious. I've been waiting for years.
Canada, and with his adamantium claws forged with nth metal or whatever, he becomes in a relationship with
Hold on,
Hercules,
nth metal,
very explicitly.
Nth metal, that's in DC. What the hell, man?
Yeah, what the fuck?
Also,
they are alternate versions of these characters.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Who are not straight. Very famously, Tony Stark and Captain America are either rivals in every continuity or lovers in some continuities. Yes, there's the version where Tony Stark is a woman, but I digress. The point of the matter is that it's strange to me how Marvel legally wrote down that Spider-Man's heterosexuality was a core defining trait of his character, that they were so afraid of this changing, of this affecting how the public saw Spider-Man, that his straightness was seen as a defining characteristic. I find it strange because it doesn't make any sense. Spider-Man's core appeal has always been anyone can be under that mask. He's the everyman, dealing with everyday problems. He may have an ingrown toenail, he might get acne one day, he might break a rib and have to keep on fighting.
We tried to make our characters have feet of clay. Now, poor Spider-Man. I mean, okay, he's pretty good at catching bad guys, but he's apt to get an allergy attack while he's fighting. He worries about dandruff, he'll have an ingrown toenail, tears his costume. His Aunt May won't let him go out to save the world because he's not wearing his galoshes and it's snowing out.
So why would sexual orientation be somehow this unusual thing?
After 20 years of writing...
Just because there was an understanding that there was love interest, and they probably wanted the love interest to be in that. Like they wanted to make sure that that was going to be the love interest used in the movie. That's it, and it's it's really not that deep. Also, is that referring to like sorry, the legally can only be that was for the Raimi movies that they gave them that instruction, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's probably very outdated and defunct now. So why the fuck are we talking about it?
Mm-hmm.
Writing pop and writing things like the strips you mentioned before, I suddenly realized, yeah, I can actually have fun with what I'm doing. And now, the more realistic we make our characters, the more the college kids who read them think that it's satire, which has taught me a very great lesson. The world is so crazy that if you present things the way they really are, it comes across as broad satire.
Marvel Comics always presented itself as the world outside your window, but by making it so that Peter Parker can never express any attraction to men, this kind of defeats the purpose. Or, what I think is more likely, Marvel Comics never considered bisexuality an option. You see, the thing is, for a very long time, people believed you were either gay or you were straight. There's a very famous magazine cover from Time where they introduce
Explain Shatterstar then. Because Shatterstar is bisexual and everyone accepts him that way.
Yeah, well, too bad he's not Spooderman. It's not good enough.
Yes.
Something ridiculous like that, as though bi people had not existed beforehand, as though orientation as understood in the 20th century was the norm for centuries, if not thousands of years into the past. That is not the case. Because homosexuality and heterosexuality were the only two options, the idea of a bi Peter never even occurred to anyone. And you know what? I don't know how I feel about that. Because that's not a reflection of Peter Parker specifically. Peter Parker, who cares? You know, Spider-Man, I love the character. You know, how he is, great. Different writers tackle him, great.
Totally
I'd rather his marriage to Mary Jane get restored. I can't believe that's still a problem, but again, there's worse things in Spider-Man comics than marriage to Mary Jane get restored. I can't believe that's still a problem. How he is, great. Different writers tackle him, great. I'd rather his marriage to Mary Jane get restored. I can't believe that's still a problem, but again, there's worse things in Spider-Man comics than Spider-Man not being able to kiss Johnny Storm. That's not really a big issue I have. Nor do I want to make it sound like
why are you making the video then?
So what? So your problem is that Spider-Man, as in Peter Parker, is not allowed to be gay. Or not allowed to be bi, sorry, to be exact, because I know you spent much ado quibbling over that. Okay. But you understand that the reason for that is because he has an established continuity and a cultural canon understanding of who the character is, and that's incongruent with it, yeah?
Yes.
Like that's the entire point.
Though I am also doing that. Let's have an alternate version of Spider-Man. It's bi in the comics. No, what I'm actually really upset by with all of this is the idea that bisexuality was so unimportant, it was never even considered an option. There's either the gay switch or the straight switch, and there's no medium setting there. There's no slider.
But no, wait. They definitively say they want him to be heterosexual, though. That means not bi.
Yes. And also, again, I'm willing to bet that even if they gave Ant what they want, an alternate Peter Parker from Earth 647825989, and he was bisexual, I am willing to bet that Ant still wouldn't be happy because it's not 616 Peter Parker.
Yeah, like the point of this is so confused. It's just like, okay, so you're upset that they specifically said that he needs to be heterosexual and they didn't say he can be bisexual. Because like, you know, heterosexuality, as you said, is distinct from being bisexual, right? Like these are different things. So of course, if they say well, let me just really quickly 3804, bring up that list again. Where was it? It's here. Not a homosexual unless Marvel has portrayed that alter ego as homosexual. Okay, so they said not homosexual. Okay. So... Okay, I see. So he's saying that they said not homosexual, but he's kind of like, oh, they didn't skirt around it by going, he's bi. Okay. Why do you care so much? Like,
who knows?
There's no medium setting there. There's no slider. It is very discouraging because even when characters are presented as possibly not heterosexual or homosexual, things get very messy. Take a look at Loki. In the Loki series, they teased that Loki might
ain't
be
gay.
bisexual or pansexual, like he is in the comics.
No, he isn't.
All right, listen, Loki is probably gay in Norse mythology. All right, listen, I'll die on this. Loki can be gay. He's allowed.
Okay, fine. But Jan, you have to remember that Marvel's Norse mythology takes a lot of liberties with it. So Loki is straight. He's not.
Loki can be gay.
He's not gender fluid either. Okay.
He can fucking transform into people. Come on, that's a superpower.
Oh no! Don't pull that shit. I have done arguing with people on that shit.
The version of Loki in the TV series is literally like an alternate version of the Loki in the canon universe.
Yeah, doesn't he fuck himself in that show? That was also a fucking wild ride, wasn't it?
Female version of himself. I guess in a technical sense, yes. It's like Rick and Morty rules, basically.
Bro, that show was fucking wild.
Would be princesses.
Yeah, that was just like I don't even. Yeah, they were smoking something when they thought of it.
The same as you. And they kind of verbally teased it, but they never gave any explicit demonstration of that orientation in the show, unless you read into his relationship with Mobius. But I don't, so we're not. The problem is this: it's not even an option. They don't care. They have no consideration it's even an option. So why should we as fans ask for it? We know we're not going to get it, but alternatively.
What do you mean we're not gonna get it? You said like you just said you got it in several other fucking things. What the fuck are you talking about? You person.
Before we move on from Loki, there's this rapper named Echo, spelled EKOH, and he did a pretty cool remix of the theme song for Loki.
Well, at least some good came out of that show.
Yeah.
Give the random character no one cares about a different orientation, people go mental over it.
Now look at Skyrim Magna.
Oh, man, stuff is getting funnier and funnier. So, Superman is now bisexual.
So Ethan Van Sciver was right. DC Comics made John Kent.
You didn't even show him saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't even show Tyrone Magnus saying anything. You just showed him announcing it. You didn't show him making any points.
Yeah.
It's not like we couldn't see this coming. DC has gone the route of 2017 Marvel Comics, trying every woke angle imaginable to boost social media attention while rarely boosting sales.
And look how that kind of messes up their minds. Studies show that...
Okay, this guy I've never heard of.
It affects...
Robert
Storm. I've never heard.
Never heard of
them later on. So if they're growing up and they're seeing, lesbians and gays on Disney Plus, they're already conditioning themselves that, hey, I want to suck dick.
Okay, that guy is. I don't know about that guy. That guy's a little sus.
There's so much outrage that happened when John Kent, Clark Kent's son, came out as bi. This was a new original character, someone who was created only a few years prior. They constantly say, make your own characters and make them not straight. Well, okay, here's just that.
Okay,
here's
the difference is with that one is that with that controversy, a lot, like, he was still being positioned as Superman, and not many people knew about John Kent, so it's kind of understandable that people would think that they made Clark Kent bisexual, which,
also, here's the thing. So when I know what Ant's about to do, he's just like, oh, why don't you make your own characters? Well, we did make our own characters. We made it bisexual. Well, here's the thing. John Kent wasn't made by Tom Taylor, who made that retcon. He was made by, Dan Jurgens, I believe. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm happy to listen. The thing is, I'm happy to grant him that, so those people are fucking wrong. Sure, they can be wrong too, but that doesn't make you correct on Peter Parker that they were wrong about John Kent, right? It's.
Yeah, it's like one of the things is that I hate about the whole original characters discourse is these people act yes, we want original characters, but that doesn't mean we're immediately going to accept any original character with open arms. We just want it's basically like, hey, we don't want race swaps. We want original characters. Okay, here's an original character. Okay, so it's an original character, but it's still bad. And it's like, you're a hypocrite. It's because it's like we want them to be both good and original.
And
why is it
and related to Jeremy's point, we also would rather prefer that they be completely on their own as opposed to just, again, leeching off the brand of other characters. Like if John Kent was completely original, no prior history to Superman or the wider DC verse, I guarantee you no one would flip out about him. Now they've completely tanked his character, and no one wants anything to do with him anymore.
Well, I'm fine to say that people will probably still flip out, but this is like the other part of it. People are going to flip out over things no matter what, right? Like, you don't need to...
I think they would flip out to a far less degree, at least.
No, yeah, but like, my point is more specifically, if the thing is simply good quality, the initial flip out won't matter, right? This has been demonstrated time and time and time and time again.
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that people flip out over it, yeah, sure, man. People are gonna, hey, listen, you know, that fucking the Tyra Magna's probably a miss on his part on this one. All right, he was wrong, but like that doesn't change. Again, this doesn't prove anything about Spider-Man. Just so clear, like. Sure.
But because he's his father's son, you got Dean Cain on Fox News complaining about it.
They said it's bold and a bold new direction. I say they're bandwagoning. You know, a Robin of Batman and Robin, as you mentioned, just came out as bi or gay recently, and there's real evil in this world today, real corruption and government overreach, plenty of things to fight against, human trafficking.
You got people making these long 50-minute videos complaining that, you know, there's a Superman that's not straight. And by not straight, I mean bi. And by bi, I mean his first relationship with anyone in the canon of the text is with a boy.
Well, they're opposing. Well, they're poisoning
not...
him with some other girl. I can't remember her name, but she existed there. So yeah.
Either, but I know who you mean.
This character has come out as bi or is bi. It's not about the history of the character, no matter how much people paint it as that. And people will respond to saying, "Oh, well, Spider-Man's been straight for 60 years," and yeah, okay, well that doesn't affect the Spider-Verse, but sure, go off, King, have fun with that. Point is this: it doesn't really matter because when they reacted to John Kent that way, they kind of overplayed their hand. They showed, hey, we don't actually care about original characters. We don't actually care about any of that. We're just going to react with anger no matter what happens. Look at Morph, a character who's
That's not. Oh God!
Morph was confirmed as non-binary in X-Men '97, and certain subsections of the internet flipped out. And they put a bunch of subversive agenda stuff in it that.
Oh God, John Del. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay.
Why are we showing John Del
God.
Ross?
Okay.
Like he's like.
Oh my God. Jeez Louise. Okay. Yeah.
Also, Morph is a guy. Just saying.
Which, like, yeah. Oh my God. The whole Morph thing is, it's like basically, basically these people were like, oh, so Morph is a character that literally nobody cared about, but it's like, oh, now they made him non-binary, which he never was. Then magically gonna start caring about him, which, like, and again, it's like, oh, well, there's a he's a shapeshifter, so that means that he can be non-binary. Okay, just make an original non-binary shapeshifter. Why is that so friggin' like difficult? Again, no, it doesn't. Just because sometimes original characters get caught in the crossfires doesn't mean they'll get mad at anything. You're just looking for an excuse to get more race swapped, hand-me-down garbage because that's all you care about, and people like original characters, but that doesn't mean that every original character is going to immediately, instantly be loved. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
Just got glossed over after the show came out because people are desperate at this point to recapture what we had back in the 90s, back in the 80s when Marvel and Star Wars were actually cool things, and Star Trek too. But all these things are dead now. They're just skin suits of what they were before. These allegories are here for the story, and I'm not one of those people who's like, it's okay, as long as it subtly hates me, I'm going to keep watching it. I see these things and I'm like, screw this.
Morph. Because the shapeshifter was the most cisgendered person in the X-Men. A character who multiple times transformed into women. A character who transformed into Rogue to seduce Gambit. Whose only friend was Wolverine. Who had many intimate scenes where they were pining after each other. In the original 90s series, not even like 97. That was the straight heterosexual guy. That was the cisgender guy, right? That was the one? Yeah. So they don't really care. It's not really a concern to them. It's never been a concern to them. So...
Also, if it wasn't a concern for them, why would, like, so many of the people after X-Men 97 turned out to be good, they were they pretty much like apologized and kind of like redid their stance because they thought it would be bad, and it turns out they were wrong, and they apologized.
Why do we have
they
to
apologized
about...
for being wrong? They apologized. They thought it would be bad, and it turns out that they liked it in like some areas, and it's just like,
why do we have to talk about them in terms of like they? Like, who the fuck are these mysterious evil they, dude? Like,
the mysterious evil they is the anti-woke chuds. People like Critical Drinker, Nerdrotic,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like a case of again, this is like absolutely
Boogeyman area that people like Anthony and Organized Chaos and all these people have just made the bad guy in their own little fantasy narrative, like they're children.
And I hope for your sake that you can definitively demonstrate that none of these people thought that John Kent was supposed to be Clark Kent, like the definitive Superman in those panels, because that would be a silver bullet in the brain of your argument, wouldn't it? Because in
fairness, the title of that Robert guy that we never heard of, if you look at him, he displays the title of the video. It clearly mentions Superman's son, so clearly he knew that it was Superman.
Yeah, he might have known, but like that's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like you can still. So they could just be wrong, is my point, right? Like we don't know that this was like a malicious anti thing, right?
Like that's the thing, because it's like that's the thing. Because again, they're people. They make mistakes, and when they make mistakes, people like Anthony will pounce on those mistakes, like
I'm
to
only
prove that
human after all.
Yeah. It's like the same thing that happened with Smash JT and McDizzle Gaming. Like McDizzle yeah, like basically like an anti-Smash JT guy named McDizzle basically tricked Smash JT with a fake story, and just about everyone who hated on Smash JT like jumped on it and acted like it was like some grand smoking aha, see, Smash JT fell for a story. And it's like, in a technical sense, yeah, Smash JT did fall for the story and it was dumb of him, but I mean, again, it's understandable given how that's just how, like insider information works. Like you have to, trust that your insider is who they say they are, and sometimes it ends up being tricked. And McDizzle did, like a very airtight thing. Smash JT did his best to make sure that McDizzle was who he was claiming to be, and he didn't find anything. And you know what? Instead of doing a temper tantrum, Smash JT was basically, you know what? I got tricked. I was wrong. I promised to do better. And then the situation was forgotten about it, and I haven't even. And yeah, meanwhile, McDizzle has basically just been completely DOA since this entire incident. Like, these people will literally take the times they do something that's they genuinely mess up or do something that's genuinely in the wrong in order to like disprove, in order to show that they were always wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, same with Just a Robot. Like once the whole City Bear stuff with Just a Robot, pretty much all of his haters, like NOA No One Asked and Team Osboss basically jumped on this immediately. And even Bob and even Organized Chaos and even our favorite trio, the Fandom Initiative, jumped on it because they were beefing with Just a Robot like a while.
Who the fuck is the Fandom Initiative? Who are they?
Organized Chaos, Actual Fandom, and Eric Debunks, yeah.
Anymore because he retired. But yeah, they were beefing with Just a Robot because Organized Chaos did a response to one of Just a Robot's videos, and they kind of engaged in a little response-ception. But after the whole Cine Bear thing, they made a whole stream, like basically trying to like take advantage of the whole situation. Because, basically everyone was against Just a Robot because of the whole, like, Cine Bear thing, which, like, I mean, admittedly, to be fair, justifiably so, he did genuinely mess up. But that doesn't retroactively make every criticism made on Just a Robot beforehand, like, completely right. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
Like, people mess up, that doesn't mean they're automatically bad.
Yeah. Anyway.
Why bother erasing it for their sake? It's going to complain no matter what. Make it more bi. As long as you make the characters who they're attracted to actual characters with arcs and their relationships.
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
Seriously, as any
heterosexual
relationship is. So my pitch is not simply to say, hey, make Spider-Man more bisexual. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying make your bi characters more visibly bi, because bi erasure services no one. You can put Tim Drake is bi or Kitty Pryde is bi on a news headline, but that's not quite the same thing as showcasing what it means to live as a bi person. Because a bi relationship, no matter if you're same or opposite gender, you are always impacted by that orientation. And if I can be serious for a second, bisexual people are subject to more violence than any other demographic out there. They are more susceptible to domestic abuse.
Wait, what?
Abuse, subject to more violence than
Okay.
any other demographic out there. They are more susceptible to domestic abuse, to any of that from their partners, who discount.
Yeah, I agree. I get choked twice a week by old men at jujitsu.
Yeah.
Orientation. These are statistics that are very important and sobering to look at, because it's not just simply, oh, you just want to be with everyone, you want to just fetishize people. No, that's not it at all. No. What it is a declaration that the impact of sexual orientation and what it has on relationship dynamics and potential abuse. Fiction is a great gateway to explaining what it means to be bi. It's not that you want a lot of things, you're greedy, you're hoarding. No, it just means you're attracted to people like anyone else.
We kind of
It
don't
just
want
you're attracted to different traits. It's that simple, but people act like it's some big thing. That you have to change the outlook on life because you find you're attracted to more than just one group of people sometimes. It's amazing how people have to jump through hoops to justify their orientation, and even after jumping through those hoops, they are still discredited, and they are still hurt by the masses. And that's a serious topic that requires a lot more discussion than just me talking about bi Spider-Man as a joke.
Think of how much of an insensitive, narcissistic, self-righteous, privileged asshole you have to be to think white people don't know what it's like to be different. As if every white dude is accepted without question. There's no bullying in the white community. Every white guy just lives this awesome, trouble-free life. On behalf of the 12% of my ancestors who were white, fuck you. Wait, on second thought, you might actually enjoy that. No, I still mean it. Fuck you.
And the fact that vitriol was the first response to so much of this back in the day, it tells me something. That people won't listen. They'll see the beginning lines and stop there and close off. They won't listen to...
Well, I listened to your 45-minute spiel about it. It was pathetic. So, you know, like...
So let me play
let
me play a song on the world's smallest violin here, Ant. Right there.
Again, all of this just seems to come down to he feels that his personal sexual identity is not represented in exactly the kind of way he would like in media. When, number one, it's just not in hyper mainstream stuff. You can definitely, again, there's a bunch of characters who are bi, who people like, who are beloved. Yeah, like I don't know what to tell you, man. You need to seek out different media, and the fact that it's not mainstream, yeah, that's probably going to be to do with the fact that the identity isn't mainstream, right? Like most people are going to go with what they most what they most closely relate to, right? That's just the reality. That doesn't mean that we don't advocate for, you know, the good works that have those characters in them, right? That's valuable. We should promote them. Hey, if people had said cringe shit about John Kent, I thought that comic book was pretty fucking bad, but like, yeah, sure, his identity can be whatever. People get things wrong sometimes, but hey. You don't need to dwell on this so much, alright? It's not everything is a personal slight against you, dude. It's fine. You're gonna be okay, alright? Just chill. It's not that big a deal.
To the pitch, they won't say anything else, and they'll call me a fetishist for continuing. I digress. Because, you know, I mean, these people do hate you. If you look at Bo DeMayo, the guy who's the showrunner for the show, he is a person who just really, really wants to tear down this society. Put his global homo agenda into everything, and then you
global homo agenda.
Well, what did we learn here today, folks?
Absolutely nothing.
As usual.
This is
closing thoughts, everyone.
Okay, I'm gonna do the thing. I'm gonna be nice. All right. I understand. And where you're coming from. I do get it, okay? Like, I get what you're getting at with you have a personal lived experience that you don't feel is represented, and you feel that there is sometimes very vitriolic pushback against it being represented. But you need to accept the fact that most people do not share that lived experience, and so I'm not going to say this is fair, because the real world isn't fair, but there's an onus on you to do a bit of extra legwork if you want to, 1, find it, 2, promote it, 3, make it, like, sell it to the masses, right? That's just how it works. Doesn't mean you give up, but it also doesn't mean you fucking say that every single person who is just a fan of canon and, like, you know, continuity is, like, a horrific homophobic person. Because why the fuck would they listen to you at that point? Like, you think that they're horrible people. Why would they listen to anything you have to say? What possible reason would there be?
Yeah.
So, like, I would say, hey, I am more than happy to talk to you about the subject.
The invite is still open, Ant. It's It's up to you to take it.
He's probably not even going to watch this part. He's probably not even going to watch this part of the film.
No, of course not. Of course not. He's too busy playing his Sudoku puzzles.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, no, like seriously, like I'd be more than happy to talk about this with you. But like, I think that the problem you're really having is you stake so much of your own like identity on your sexuality specifically, and I don't think that's healthy as someone who has the same sexuality. So you know,
Jeremy, closing.
I mean, I can't even think of the last character. I mean, can't even think of like. I mean, yeah, I don't just like attach my identity as a straight white male to characters because like I don't really care. I'm just a person.
And my closing argument is the same as always. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment below if you love videos, subscribe for more videos like this, and we'll see you guys next time in the backseat. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.